I was saying to him, literally name anything that comes off the top of your head. It's in the industry.
Yeah.
You can work it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you want to be a painter? There's a department for that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Deficit Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Aubrey. Our mission statement, as usual, is to provide you stimulation to your own attention deficit through good chats, life hacks, and everything in between. I'm joined today with a good friend of mine and a lovely independent filmmaker named Brandon Giddens from Michaelangelo Productions, his own company. He's decided to grace us with his presence today and come and catch up. So, Brandon, why don't you tell us who you are?
Yeah, well, grace you with my presence.
Yeah. I like to be courteous, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm as you said, I'm an independent filmmaker. Originally from Kamloops, BC, then moved to Vancouver to pursue that. And the industry brought me back to Kamloops for a chunk of time.
Yeah. Same here, man. I feel you there.
And then, here we are. I'm back in Vancouver because, again, the industry brought me back here. So at this point, it's just me going wherever I got to go.
Get your own Pacino moment, eh? They just keep pulling me back in every time I'm out.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm doing everything I can to not sit around and necessarily wait for things to come my way. I like to go out and grab the bull by the horns, so to speak. You know?
Create your own opportunities. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a good way to lead a life, man. That's a great attitude to have too. A lot of people are like, they seem to think that like, I think I call it the worker's mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you only think that you can get an opportunity from somebody else. That like creating opportunities for yourself is so far out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is just a little shift in thinking and some resourcefulness.
Well, yeah, it literally was that for the longest time. When I first started in this world, it was me thinking that I had to wait for somebody else to give me permission to do things. Yeah. And I'm like, why am I doing that?
Yeah. There's no laws that keep you from doing your things. Yeah. As long as they're like, you know, normal things. Like, Well, and for a chunk of time, there was me doing that. And then a friend of mine that I met a few years ago, he was just like, why don't we just try our hand at commercial work? Let's build a demo reel and do it, a little portfolio. And it was the Sunday, and, you know, we had to go to work Monday, but we decided to be like, you know what, let's do it. Cool. And so we, like that night, Sunday night, we quit our jobs. Nice.
And just went for it and, you know, tried to make things happen. And so it worked for maybe like 2 months, 3 months, which is awesome.
Fucking sweet, dude.
But, yeah. And then it all kind of caught up with us.
Slowed down a little bit? Yeah. What do you think? What do you think attributed to it slowing down?
I think it was just not necessarily knowing how to navigate it. You know, like you could go out and start making things and do your own thing for a chunk of time. And you know, I think your eagerness and your drive to make things happen gets you out and doing things. But as soon as you kind of have a moment to sit down and think about what to do next, you're like, where the heck do I go?
Yeah. I think that's where networking plays in too,
100%.
Though, right? It's like people think there's a lot of impressions that networking is just knowing other people, but when you're well networked, you actually get more ideas from conversations with these people.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't always have to be like, where can we make money together? A lot of times it's just like, you know, that's actually a good idea. Why don't we like try and run on that?
Yeah. Know? Well, yeah, somebody I met to get me back into the film industry for work linked me up with a head of department, Grip. And that it's one of those connections, one of those things that kind of kept me in the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't know how the heck I'm supposed to find work right now in the interior.
It's a niche thing out there for sure.
Yeah.
There's a couple of like, I don't want to call them titans because by no means are they like up there, but you know,
for that area.
Yeah. There's like placeholders, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so you grew up in Kamloops too?
Yeah.
I think. Did you tell me that before? I don't remember.
Long time ago, we may have talked about it, but
wow, where did you go? What school?
majority of the schools.
Majority of the schools. Moved around a lot. Nice.
Yeah. I started off, what was the school I started at? I guess it would have been St. Anne's.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I started.
The Catholic school.
Yeah, the Catholic
nice.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, mass every Thursday. Oh, but yeah, I went there for 3 weeks, and our mom took us out, and we went to Juniper.
Cool.
And then, bounced around a couple schools throughout those final years. But
nice, man.
Yeah.
Wow. And your family's still back in Kamloops?
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Well, and that's what was nice about going up there. You could see the family and everybody up there and spend some time after me being down here for 4 or 5 years. So, nice. Yeah, it was nice to see everybody again.
So that's the who. So the what, I guess we've also covered the what. You're a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. You like doing that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What sort of films are you like generally more drawn towards? Well,
I definitely am drawn more towards the films that kind of make you think about life choices a little bit. Mm-hmm. For example, one that I am working on right now, it's called What If? Working title. Let me just clarify that.
Chill your shit, Marvel. It's okay.
Yes. But it's the idea, how every single little decision we make throughout a day can dictate what happens after.
Like a butterfly effect, sort of.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's the idea that this group called Moses and Minds, again, working title on that
Moses and Minds.
Moses and Minds. The founder of this company is... his last name is Moses.
Cool.
And that, but he is giving people the opportunity to go back and make a different choice in a scenario that they have lived through already. Like, for example, something as small as choosing to hold the door open for somebody rather than rushing out and getting to the bus stop so they don't miss it and they're late to work, but the person behind them is bumped and they drop these papers, say, as an example. They step outside and get hit by a car. If you would have held the door for them for that split second, they may have just missed it.
Yeah, okay.
It's little things like that where it's like, what would you go back and change?
That's very interesting.
It's ideas like that make me intrigued with movies and stuff like that. I watched one last night about AI or a computer choosing or deciding whether or not you're in love with a person or not. And I'm like, that's an interesting idea because it kind of plays that.
Was that a Black Mirror episode or something?
No, it's called Fingernail.
Fingernail.
Mm-hmm. It's on Apple TV. But
cool.
Yeah. It's starting things off. It was like, okay, what am I watching? But then after a little bit, you're thinking, okay, interesting. Allowing statistics to decide whether or not you are in love with this person or not, and it made me think. It made me take a step back and be like, geez, that's almost the way the world's moving, which is scary.
Yeah. There's a lot of terrifying maneuvers happening these days. I remember, you watch Terminator when you're a kid and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Good thing it's just a movie. And now it's like, wait a minute. It's called Starlink, not Skynet, but it's not far off.
Oh, it's not.
It's really not.
It's not.
Yeah, it's some scary shit out there.
Yeah.
So... can you name me a few directors who kind of I guess motivate you to make films like that? Are there any in particular that come to mind?
Well, oddly enough, Paul Thomas Anderson is top of my list, favorite director ever, and just his movies are just so aesthetically pleasing.
Which ones are your favorite from him?
Phantom Thread is a good one. There Will Be Blood, a classic.
Yeah, it is a classic. Yeah.
And then what's it called? Licorice Pizza, I think is his most recent one. I could be getting the title of that one wrong, but
I think I know the one you're talking about, though.
Yeah, it's his most recent release, and just the way he shoots things is very organic, and it almost makes you feel like it's more documenting a scenario rather than filming it.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of like an Adam McKay type approach.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a movie about something that has happened, and you feel like you've learned something in a sense at the end of it, right?
Yeah. And again, it kind of makes you Inherent Vice. That movie is fantastic just in the sense, character arcs and stuff like that, but the main character has no character arc.
Dude, the fact that they had Steve Carell as Donald Rumsfeld was so weird to me, but it worked so well.
Well.
I've never seen him with that kind of makeup on before. It was crazy.
Yeah. But that's at the top of my list for sure, the director. In that kind of filmmaking, idea-wise, somebody like Tarantino, the simplicity yet complexity of his stories are just so funny and perfect.
Yeah, he almost knows that it's Hollywood and just wants to embellish that as much as he can. This is a movie. This is not a look into somebody's life. We're making something for people to watch. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. No, I love that, and the fact that he can make a 3-hour movie feel like it was only an hour and a half. It's fantastic.
Oh, big time. He's got such a, it's Tarantino. I've heard he's got a signature camera lens that he's used for
really?
All of his films. And apparently they don't make this lens anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be worth something like $1 million or $2 million now because of the fact that it's one of the only ones existing and it's been used on his shows, but it's his legacy lens. It's I think it's how he gets that kind of that retro vibe. You know when you watch a lot of his stuff, like Pulp Fiction, for example, it has a certain I guess almost a graininess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you see that in most of his other films too. Yeah. There's always this kind of it looks like a movie.
Yeah, this aesthetic.
Yeah.
That you can't seem to replicate. I don't know.
Yeah, he's fuck 4K. I want my movies to look like the 1970s. That's the whole,
That's the best way to do it.
Exactly. It keeps you engaged, but also doesn't make you feel like you're stuck in this alter reality kind of thing.
Well, and I find a lot of things are too sharp. Mm-hmm. Fine. Netflix.
It's been the biggest downside of the advancements in high definition.
Oh, for sure.
I used to be audio-visual salesman back in the day at a Visions Electronics in Kamloops.
Yeah.
And I was there when they brought the first 4K TVs in.
Ooh.
And I still remember watching them in that vivid mode where it's all ultra sharp, ultra bright kind of thing. And the first thing I said was why does everything look so fake?
Because I get that.
It's so sharp that it makes set design and everything looks so apparent. That's not a real thing.
Yes. Well, and that, the 8K that's out now.
Yeah.
You see it kind of on display at Best Buy or something. Yeah. And it's holy crap, that's way too clear.
It's this was clearly made for computer animated films, not for real people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's nuts, man. So are you, is there anything along the lines of a certain look that you try to chase after, a film aesthetic? So I watched your Alone in the Dark shorts just before you got here, and they definitely have they have a very cool vibe in the sense that you almost feel isolated with him, and somehow the way you've managed to portray it through your shots and through the audio engineering too, frankly, it does make it feel like you're in it.
Okay,
and they're only and I know they're only 5 to 7 minutes long, right? But fuck, man, it was immersive.
Good.
It was, I really appreciated that about the way you shoot your films.
Yeah. Okay, I'm happy to hear that because Alone in the Dark Part 1.
Yeah.
I was sick that day, and I was so I have.
Did you just improv that?
I did.
That's awesome. Well done.
I was sitting on the couch watching something. I don't know. I was just wasting my day away being sick, that kind of thing. And I have this blessing/curse where if I stop for too long, I feel like somebody else is working.
Yeah.
And I'm okay, somebody else is pulling ahead of me right now.
Yeah, it's that competitive edge you got, yeah.
And so I stood up and I'm I'm just going to film something, see what happens. And this project I've been working on for the longest time. It's gone on way too long.
I remember you telling me about it when we first started working together 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's been a long time. And I thought, I'm going to film something that kind of is a little bit of a spin-off of that. And I sat down and just kind of planned out a couple shots and whatnot. And then I'm I can't be planning this. I have this issue where when I plan out a shot to the T, I feel like I'm stuck in a box, so to speak. And so I just kind of that's partly why I love that documentary style filmmaking so much, is rather you find the frame instinctually rather than whatever you've worked out before.
Yeah.
And it just kind of it helps also actor-wise, like filming a short film called First Date, like I just told the actors, just you do you, I'll find the frame. And just the freedom they felt they had during that shoot was just, they were like, okay, yeah, I would love to be able to make things like that.
That's an awesome way to go about it too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know of many who actually do that as much.
Well, and I can understand, on a bigger film set, you know, you kind of have to have it planned to some degree.
Yeah.
But that's what, giving somebody the opportunity to just do them and not worry about anything else, I feel you have a lot more flexibility and a lot more just flat out ability to try things and to experiment. And that's the way I approached that short film, was just, I'm just going to set the camera up and see what happens. And because I was the only one filming, I couldn't really do anything like that, like I just said. But I just sat down and started talking and like, you know what? I know the direction I want to go with this. Let's just see how we get there.
Cool.
And I started putting it together, and I was like, okay, this is if there wasn't any music or noise, it would be such a bland thing of this dude sitting there talking to the screen.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, I need to find first off that ambient music or whatever to tie in the fact that it's some sort of technological relevance, along with being lonely or alone and being somewhat uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
it definitely had an uneasy kind of vibe to it.
And I've really found this with these projects, is because I have the part 2 and part 3 coming out pretty soon, but I'm finding that the sound design and sound engineering is that opportunity to tell things in your story that you can't necessarily afford for independent filmmakers specifically. Like at the beginning of Alone in the Dark, I was putting sirens and screaming and babies and all this stuff. I'm like, I can't afford to get that stuff for this. So I put it at the beginning on a black screen, and it allows people watching to just kind of formulate an idea of what happened before.
Absolutely. That's the magic of audio, though, right? Like sound has so much power over your mental state.
Yeah.
More than a lot of people give it credit for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely finding that. And then also, if it's bad audio as well, then it kind of ruins the
it can take away from the experience entirely. Yeah.
So, but I filmed that and put it together and showed my family, and they're like, "This is good. Isn't there a film festival coming up in Kamloops?"
Yeah,
like, I'm not gonna submit this.
The Kamloops Independent Film Festival. Hell yeah, man! That's
That's I'm like, wicked. You know what? I've never been. Let's go.
Yeah.
And my brother was like, "Why don't you submit it? Like, it's like what, $10 to submit your film? Do it."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, sure. I guess there's nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd it do? How'd it do? Did you get any?
1 second prize at
cool.
in the professional category. So I'm like,
in the professional category. Oh, look at you! Nice, cool, man.
I'm like, damn, all right, that's pretty good.
Well, it does look pretty professional, honestly. Like,
okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
There's not much about it that feels independent by any means. Like the shots are well read, and like even the way your character's kind of like journaling their experience, right? And like I feel like maybe it's just almost the lack of abstract thinking or something, or like abstract portrayals makes it feel a lot more authentic. Because I find a lot in the indie community, there seems to be this way of like, they don't have the budget to get an idea across, kind of like what you're talking about with your audio, right? So instead of doing anything like big budget, like effects wise or anything like that, they kind of do these certain camera shots and angles and like maybe like some light flooding and stuff that just make it feel like it's, I don't know, like artsier. If that makes any sense.
Well, and that's the kind of the thing that I ran into was like, my ideas are very complicated, and I gotta get away from complexity. I gotta figure out how to simplify this thing.
Yeah.
And it also makes it easier for independent ideas to happen if you make it nice and simple.
Well, I mean, you get a few good drone shots for establishing where they are and stuff, and like building a real vibe for like the environment that they're in, and then like you just have the character there going at it, and like it does feel like something like, I feel like a lot of the big filmmakers, they'll go through a point where like they feel like all the bigger stuff is necessary, and then they kind of come back to their roots and realize that like they're lacking simplicity, and that's when they start to make their award-winning stuff, right?
Right.
And I think you definitely hit it with that. It was like,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was good. I was actually really surprised, man. Like, it's not like I had low expectations for you by any means, but like,
Jesus.
It was just like the slight, like the focus pulls, and like there's one shot in the beginning of Alone in the Dark Part 2 I saw where you had some ants crawling around, and then there's just a boot that comes through. Yeah. And it was almost like metaphorical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was going for.
Oh, I'm so glad, because like, cool. No, that's good, man. Yeah, because it really was like, and especially with like, I'm trying not to give away too much about what the concept of the film is, but like, for what the concept of the film is, that's very meta, I guess.
Meta.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So what kind of shots come to mind when you're thinking of like good cinematic shots? Like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of different looks out there.
Well, that's interesting. I've been trying to put my finger on that for the longest time, because for Part 3, for example, Alone in the Dark Part 3, I have the look that I'm kind of establishing in these short films and in my past short films and whatnot that I'm trying to carry on with these projects. But when I don't know if this is like a selfish thing. I don't know what it is, but this look that I'm going for, I hand it to my little brother, for example, and I trust him with the camera, For Part 2, he filmed the whole thing, and I think it turned out pretty good.
So did he conceptualize the shots too then? Like the angles?
No, I just told him I want this shot, this angle, and try to rack the focus to me as soon as I hit this point, and nailed it every time, which was awesome.
Cool.
He'd only picked up a camera I think once before, so I was pretty happy with that.
Nice.
But getting this look that I'm trying to hold on to, I haven't found that I can necessarily get that look when I give the camera to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's also why I enjoy directing and operating, is because I have that, I like to approach it with that instinctual approach rather than the planned approach. That sounds a little reckless, but it gives me the opportunity to move around and find a frame kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely directors and filmmakers who have a particular cinematographer or DP that they try to stick with because the DP or cinematographer has this certain look that they like to go for, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also ones that they have the look in mind, and it doesn't matter who they have on as a cinematographer for the most part, because they're there to, like, the look matters to them as much as the acting does.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I do strongly believe that the camera also should play as a character in a story.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The movements and the look of it, the aesthetic of the shot and what's in the frame plays so much into the story itself. So
it's a good way to put it. The character, the camera itself is a character in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Like, Grand Budapest Hotel.
Wes Anderson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very well known for his particular, visual style, right?
Yes.
What do you think of that as opposed to something along the lines of, like, I don't know, insert crazy Hollywood director here, like, I can't think of his name right now. Explosions, light flares.
Oh, Michael Bay?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, him. So out of those two, though, like, I know it's kind of also like a self-expressionism in a sense, right? But, like, do you think that one has a better idea of what the people want versus what they want?
Well, it's interesting because I think, like Wes Anderson, for example, in his movies, they're extremely satisfying to watch.
They really are, yeah.
They're all very snappy and everything's perfect and symmetrical.
Yeah.
And for somebody that finds a lot of comfort and satisfaction in that kind of thing, that's the guy for you, you know. And I feel there's a huge chunk of viewers who look for that kind of thing, and that's also why he is who he is.
Yeah.
For somebody like Michael Bay, he also understands that a lot of people go to the theater to be entertained. They don't go there to necessarily learn much or take anything away from their cinema experience. You know, they just go in there to be entertained and, you know,
the
see
escapism of
big
it all.
Things. Yeah. So I think he's hitting the nail on the head with that.
Definitely. Other parts, not so much. Yeah. Excessive explosions.
Excessive.
Yeah.
But, you know, in his little, like we were saying before, like the product placement, it's like, okay, we understand it's sponsored by Bud Light. Okay, we get it.
Yeah. We don't need any more Anheuser-Busch commercials in this show, okay? We've already got like 15 minutes of commercials coming before the movie, so let's try and keep it light
like a
here.
whole ad.
Yeah. That's wicked, man. Like, so I assume that like film in and of itself has been like a big part of your life since before you even got into it, right?
Well,
or was it something that you more came into as you were getting older?
Well, like, going through high school and whatnot, I didn't really know where I was going to go. I for a long chunk of time, I wanted to be a lawyer and go down that route.
You would be a lot more bald.
Am I balding right now?
No.
I'm just kidding. But no, like the whole lifestyle would have been so different, and you know, the complete other extreme, I feel. But once I went to university and wanted to move in that direction, the arts kind of pulled me, you know, in a sense, in that direction. And I just found that it was just so much more relaxing to a point.
Can you recall the first thing that made you kind of like drift your attention over to art?
Oh, watching a play. Yeah. I forget what the play was called, but watching that play just kind of sucked me in a sense. It was just so nice to watch, and seeing how much fun they were having down there.
Yeah.
And knowing that you could make a career out of that if you wanted. Not saying it's easy, but you could. You could.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I should give it a try.
Yeah, why not? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I signed up for theater, and, you know, next thing you know, that's what I'm doing. And I want to say like one semester in or a year in or something to the theater program in university, I dropped out and moved down to Vancouver and went for it.
Wicked.
Which, you know, looking back at that, I wouldn't change a thing. But it's like, holy crap, okay, I had no savings, put away nothing, and I just went for it.
Nice.
And, you know, I wouldn't say I'm anywhere comfortable, but, you know, it somewhat worked.
Yeah, I mean, like, fuck, as long as you aren't needing to sleep on a sidewalk.
Exactly.
You know, and you can get a hot meal in your belly.
Mm-hmm.
Not much more that people need to be satisfied with.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can be satisfied with that and it gives you time to focus on the things you create.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then so be it, right?
Totally. Well, and ever since that, you know, initial move to Vancouver and the pursuit of this industry, I have not seen myself doing anything else. I've thought about, you know, at times I'm like, you know what, maybe I should go back to university just to have that backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Whenever I like actually sit down and think about it, I get a little sick. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that to myself.
I feel every time I think about going back into construction, carpentry and stuff, it's like, fuck, I don't know if I know if I could live with myself.
Yeah, well, and getting all these like expendable jobs.
Yeah.
You know, when I get into some sort of routine of like a 9 to 5, it's just so
soul crushing.
Oh, it ruins me. Mm-hmm. I just get such a drive to get out there and work in film.
Yeah.
In whatever capacity.
Well, because like like we were talking about this before we started rolling, but like, you know, you get pulled onto a project and you understand that it's going to be this long.
Yeah.
And you're going to work with people who want to work.
Exactly.
And they like their jobs.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're part of this giant like artistic experience, right?
Yeah.
An ecosystem. Yeah. And like, and not having to compete for vacation time is just the winter for me. Like I hated having to book 6 months in advance for like July 1st to whatever time.
Oh yeah,
you know. Yeah. And it's like, oh, you can't get that because some guy who actually has a higher ranking job than he wants those days. So we need,
That's so true.
Yeah.
So true. And the fact that, you know, like you said, after the job is done, you could take some time off and just do your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then call someone up and hopefully get another job.
Yeah.
You know?
It's ironic, actually. Like, since I got into the industry, I've been like, always saying, I want to work through the summer and take the winter off, go somewhere. I haven't been able to do it yet. I've ended up working through every winter and then like not having worked through the summer. So like, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be in a beautiful part of the world in the summertime, which is great.
Yes.
And it would be nice to just take off to Mexico.
You're telling me.
You know, get somewhere warm.
Just go away for a little bit.
I used to say when I was younger, when I grow up, I want to move somewhere where nobody even knows what the fuck snow is. You know,
that would be something,
right? Take the company to Dubai or something like that. You know?
For sure.
Let's go live on that Palm Island.
Wow. Yeah. No, I would love that. I've been talking to my partner about that, just planning a trip, because we would always talk about going somewhere. And I thought, why don't we just write it out, plan it, like work out the numbers, everything, and then go, you know, actually pick a time and go.
Yeah.
So it's such a need. It's such a want at this point that it's like just
big time, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been with my wife for 8 years. We've never gone on a vacation together. I took off on a backpacking trip the first 6 months. Yeah. Like after we were together for about, I think it was 3 to 6 months, somewhere in there. She'll correct me if I'm wrong, but we weren't like super serious yet. And I remember having my buddy Cody took off to New Zealand, and I just wanted to travel so bad. I just felt this pull, and I sold my car, and instead of taking the money to buy another car, I bought a one-way ticket to New Zealand. Just on a whim. I was like, fuck it. And I told Cedar, who was just my new girlfriend at the time, now my wife, but like, and she was surprisingly supportive about it.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. You know, you got a good one.
Yeah. You know? I was like, well, she lived in Germany for like 9 months at one point as an au pair, and like she speaks fluent German. She's very like into the European culture and stuff, right? And like she'd tell me all these amazing stories about these different places, and like I just wanted that. Yeah. You know, I wanted that culture shock. And it's just, and now though, it's like I want to experience that with her, because even when I was down there, like, you know, you go and as a single man traveling and stuff, there's these certain things that you strive for, those typical things, right? Yeah. But it got to a point where like I'd be in these beautiful places, walking on beaches where like the sand is so white and fine that it feels like you're walking on baking flour. Yes. Like just incredible, right? Crystal clear waters, jungle trees and shit, just beautiful. Yeah. And all I could think about is how much I wanted her there with me. You know? Yeah. Like someone beautiful to share this beautiful moment with.
Totally.
And like now it's just like that. That's what I want to try and get to, I guess, eventually here. I won't rant too much about my partner though. Tell me about yours though. Like when did you meet your girlfriend? And like
no, we met 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now. And then we had this 2-year long distance of me being in the interior. So, you know, it's been a wild ride. Yeah. But it's been good. It's been good. I'm now living with her down here, and we're trying to pick up where we left off, and
nice
and all that. It wasn't too bad being only 3 hours ish away from Vancouver, so I came down usually once a month, twice a month kind of thing for that, and came down here as well for other work reasons and stuff like that. She must
be a very supportive person, though.
She is a very supportive person, very, very much so. And she appreciates when I talk about movies and talk about film, because I get so excited about it and I can't seem to stop when I start.
Yep.
And you can, you know, when you're talking to somebody and you see in their eyes, they kind of glaze over in a sense. She doesn't do that. It's like the complete opposite. She dials right in, and she's like, I know I don't need to talk for the next like half an hour, so I'm just going to sit down and listen. And, you know, she loves seeing me talk about that stuff. And even though, the industry isn't the most stable thing to be in.
No, it's a hustler's game for sure.
It is, totally. Yeah. But she sees that I enjoy it, that I find a lot of satisfaction in it and achievement in getting something after a while. And, so she totally realizes that even though it's a tough industry to be in, it pays off in multiple ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been a great relationship so far, and hopefully to keep that going.
So for other people working in film or thinking about getting into it, but are like worried about, I hear it's long hours and I'll be away from my wife a lot or whatever.
Yeah.
Little token of wisdom for them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You got anything for them?
I would almost say don't go in with any expectations. There's a lot of talk about the industry being like, when you see it on TV or behind the scenes stuff, it looks so fun and exciting and invigorating, and whatnot, which it is.
Yeah, behind the scenes doesn't show the PAs tugging Duratex through the mud, though.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't show all like the reality of it.
I feel that trauma in your spine.
Oh, I still feel it in my lower back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, honestly, if I could restart the film industry, if it would have been possible not to formulate some sort of expectation for working in that world, it would have made things a lot easier, I think. I worked on a show called Pachinko for its season, and I had a shift that ran 22 or 23 hours, and it was just, they kept falling behind, and they kept asking us, is it okay? You're allowed to say no. We're overtime.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I thought, you know what, frick, I got nowhere else to be. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they brought in food trucks and coffee vans and whatever, whatever they could.
That's so cool when they bring in the coffee trucks and stuff.
And it's good coffee, like, oh my gosh. But no, I had in my mind that working on a film set would be exciting and fun, and it'd be cool to see some spectacle every day. But in reality, it's very hard work. I admire anybody who works in it in whatever capacity.
Big time.
Yeah.
The hours are long, man.
They're long.
Do any job for that long.
Totally. Totally. And, and I don't think PAs get enough recognition.
Absolutely not.
Honestly.
Like, what would have, let's see anyone else in that production deal with all the fucking garbage and making sure that people don't walk on the grass they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
They definitely don't get enough credit.
No, and I think I've had the idea of working on the next show that I'm lined up to do. I'm gonna try and talk to the producer. I'd have no idea how I would make this work or how it would happen, but I would love to make some sort of video or channel or something, kind of showing the reality of working on a film set, and doing that by wearing a GoPro on my chest and just kind of going through the day, obviously chopping it up so it's not like a 20-hour long video, but going through the day of what an actual film worker looks like on set, so
that's a good idea, honestly, because people don't understand the vastness that there is,
for sure,
and the huge diversity of people and what kinds of jobs you have to have on a set.
Totally. Well, and I say to my little brother, because for the longest time I was trying to convince him to come work on a film when you and I were working in the interior. I'm like, just come be a PA for a day. Try it out.
Check it out, yeah.
And he was considering for a little bit, but I was saying to him, literally name anything that comes off the top of your head. It's in the industry.
Yeah.
You can work it.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to be a painter? There's a department for that.
Every fucking trade out there is involved in film.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be a cook, they're the most loved people on set at times.
Big time. And they make some of the most money too, yeah.
For sure.
I knew a woman who had her own truck, and she said she was clearing just under $20,000 a month.
Ooh.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so I think it's just go into the industry with as little expectation as possible. And that would just keep your mind open to what you're stepping into. Because unfortunately, it's not what you think.
Yeah.
It is at times, but majority of the time, it's not what you think.
Yeah.
So that's I think what I'd have to say about that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How does that relate to the relationship part though with your partner?
Well, it's you go into it thinking like, you'll be home at this time, and
I see. Okay, yeah.
You'll feel up to sure. Let's make plans for after work. I'll be good to go.
Be prepared to work around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that job.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Like, and then after you've somewhat established yourself in that industry and in that job, and you have a good chunk of credits behind you and all this stuff to have a sense that okay, the person that you've worked with, the head of the department you've worked with, will probably call you again to work on the next show. When you feel in that place where you're like, okay, I could take a little bit of time off in between this show and the one that I feel I'll be called for, then you can focus more on the relationship and whatnot in your own personal life. Yeah. When you're working on a set, my older brother and my mom and all that, they saw as soon as I went up there for a film initially, I would drop off the face of the earth for the duration of that shoot. Yeah. Just my personal life was gone. I was just sleeping and going to work. That was
15
my life.
hours a day is a lot of fucking work. Plus driving to and from wherever you're living, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's just, it involves, you and your partner and your relationship and your own personal life. Just try to go into the industry with as little expectation as possible. Yeah. And it will just make everything a little bit better. Yeah. Also for everyone around you.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was lucky enough. I think the thing that helped me a lot was on my first show, after the first 2 weeks of filming, we lost 2 PAs. And I was, just getting in as a PA as it was, but they needed 2 people. And I was like, maybe I could get my best friend and my wife on here. Because my best friend wants to be an actor. He wants to be in film, but he's back in Kamloops as a support worker. Yeah. And my wife is she's working as a receptionist in a real estate firm right now. Yeah. So I gave them both a call, and I schmoozed my ALM, and Christy, she was kind enough to be like, all right, yeah, bring them on. Yeah. And she got to see firsthand what the industry was like. And from that point forward, I never had to explain to her why my days were going so long or like why I wasn't going to be home before 12, why I couldn't do anything throughout the week. It's like,
for sure.
Or why I was so fucking tired on a Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because I'm recovering from 4 hours of sleep a day.
From the Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Just crazy. And that was a big help. I don't know how others do it as much when their partner's never seen or been around it.
Right. Right. Know? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think my partner, she's very understanding with it because she also has other friends that work in the industry and like actors and producers and stuff. She's heard from them as well that it's grueling hours and it's not an easy job to do. So I think when meeting me and knowing I was in that, she kind of knew.
She had a good understanding of it. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's always helpful. Okay, I mean, that's the one thing that I always warn people about when they're thinking about getting in the industry. I was like, are you married? Are you in a relationship? And if they say yes, I say, just sit them down, have a real talk, because this is the kind of career that you go into where sometimes your relationship is going to have to take second to your career, especially if you want to.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's not necessarily for the whole duration of you working in it, but if you're trying to establish like some sort of network to keep yourself working full time. Yeah. Because film is like gig work, right? It's like you sign on for a project and unless you're well networked, you're not going to have another one to go on to after that. Yeah. Right. You want people to know you and like have your number and all that. Right. So for the first year or two, you just spend your time making the best impression you can on everyone and handing out your number like it's a coupon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I actually got business cards, right, for Michaelangelo Productions. But for the longest time, I was thinking like, man, I should be using business cards just for myself on a set. Yeah. Just so I could be like, yeah, here's my number. Yeah, call me.
Yeah. Actually, I knew a few people on set who were doing that.
It's a good idea.
Well, it is because like not everyone has the time to like go into their phone and add a contact and shit. You can just, here.
Yeah, here's my card.
Yeah, do it whenever you can. Yeah. Call me. I'm really good at throwing out garbage. You want that tent set up? Man, I'll set that tent up for you so quick.
Yeah, I can set it up myself.
Yeah. You have no idea how many people I can get to shut up at the same time. It's such a good gig, man.
Yeah.
So outside of film, though, what do you like to do in your life? Like what kind of things do you do to like keep yourself sane when you're done with film work or something?
Yeah.
You have all this time off, you know, and you're like outside of making your own stuff. Like, are you into music, sports? Like, what do you do?
Sports has always been a huge part of my life. Just growing up, it was sports, and soccer specifically.
Oh, really? Soccer?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
But these days, I'm not really doing much anymore. I've been a little bit over the time.
It's hard to keep that routine up when you can't do it in school. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But no, like now, I just when I was around family for the couple of years, back in Kamloops, I spent majority of my time outside of work just with them in any capacity.
Cool.
But no, outdoors, anything outdoors, man. Just hiking or spending time at Shuswap Lake.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, just
so nice, man.
Yeah, just relaxing. I write a lot.
Cool.
Like that is a major thing that I do. Whether it's
do you journal at all?
Yeah.
Nice.
I try to journal as much as I can, and it's a very nice outlet in a sense. What I find too, though, is when I do write it and close the journal for the day or whatever, I feel like I haven't completely let go of whatever feelings that I was feeling that made me want to journal, because I'm not necessarily one to sit down and have a routine where I journal every single day at the same time kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I would almost have to write it into a script. It's kind of sick.
Well, that's your way of writing, I guess, right?
It is a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I try to do outside of work, is just kind of relax, write a little bit, and spend time with family as much as I can. And it's nice being back with my partner just because I can spend time with her.
Yeah, I can picture your journal entries right now. It's like camera pans into room, Brandon Giddens writing on journal.
Honestly. He's watching this right now.
Yeah. Oh, my life in a third-person perspective. That's wicked, man. That's very cool.
Yeah.
When you go, like, so I guess the interior was probably pretty good for that, eh? Like Kamloops. There's lots of awesome hiking areas and stuff.
Yes.
How did you survive the winters, though? Because that's one thing that it's a huge reason why I can't live there anymore. It's just like, as soon as that, we have 2 weeks of spring and 2 weeks of fall, and then it's like either Arizona hot or it's just like mud and ice. Yeah. And I just can't do the mud and ice part. I don't ski enough either to like really justify it, right?
I used to like go skiing quite often. I love winter sports.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
But no, it also, what made me dread winters were just hills. Yeah. Driving up a hill or down a hill, it's terrifying first off with snow blowing over the road and all this kind of stuff, and everybody else around you doesn't entirely know how to drive in snow. So I just would dread winters every year up there because it was, growing up, we lived at the top of Kamloops, or we lived in
Juniper,
in Juniper, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrifying descent in the wintertime.
It's so bad.
Man, you might as well just take a snowboard. Like,
honestly, it would have made things much easier.
Yeah.
But no, now like up there, it was me living at the bottom of the valley. The job I was going to was at the bottom of the valley. It was all just flat, which, it allowed me to just kind of enjoy winter as it was and have no real anxieties about it.
Yeah.
And just, it's a cozy place. I love snow. I love it when it's falling and all this, cheesy stuff. I love it. I love
all the cornball stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we should write some Hallmarks.
Some of the Hallmark Christmas I was approached movies. To do that.
Yeah, really?
I was.
Hey, man, why not? I mean,
I've tried to start it, but man, is it hard.
Hey, buddy, I could help you out. I got lots of corny ass lines.
Oh, please.
There, just gotta stay with a Christmas vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, well, so I'm just trying to think about all those times in Kamloops that were just like, goddamn, the winter out there is just crazy. I'm glad you liked it, but
I slowly grew to like it. I think majority of the time, I would 100% rather be on the coast with little to no snow, or be somewhere where they don't know what snow is.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
How much of where you grew up do you think plays into how you write your films? Have you ever been able to think about that from an aspect?
I've never thought about that.
People seem to, like, there is a pretty agreed upon consensus that, you know, art and creation is like an expression of the inner self and inner experiences, right?
Yeah.
So do you think there's any of that plays in, like when you look at it from like an outside aspect?
I guess location-wise, it definitely comes in. Like my first initial thought for a certain location I see something playing out would be in a semi-desert, which is, I've never really thought about that. Yeah, and I think it has more to do with not necessarily where I grew up, but how I grew up. You know, like I was very family-oriented. My family was always around, and there wasn't a lot of conflict that I was, you know, dealing with growing up.
Oh, nice.
You know, there wasn't anything ridiculous. I fortunately had a pretty damn good upbringing.
Cool.
But I find that when I write, I put myself in these situations that I always kind of, in a twisted way, felt like I would have been through in a different life, or, you know, I would put and just play it out.
Yeah.
Play out that scenario, how I would approach it, how I would find a resolution in it.
Like an improvised trauma of some sort.
As weird as that is, yeah.
No, I mean, it's good. It shows, I feel like that's probably a pretty good skill to have as a filmmaker, right? Because a lot of times you're not writing stories about yourself, right? It's about experiences that you've always thought about, but never had the chance to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and a lot of things like that I tend to, well, even more these days, I sit back and observe. I love observing.
You're a people watcher.
For sure.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, sitting in a park and just watching strange people walk by.
Oh, yeah.
Wondering what's their story.
Like,
you know?
What are they doing today?
Yeah.
But no, I think about what issues we have today in our world, or what could happen down the road in our world, kind of thing. I do a lot of that thinking.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, welcome to being a millennial, man.
Well, oh man, I'm like on the cusp of like Gen Z and millennial.
Really?
I am. 97.
Oh, 97.
97.
Okay,
it's like right there.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, can I choose? But like, yeah, I don't know. For one example, one that has been on my mind for the longest time is just technology in general. Just technology. Like all of the things we take so much for granted. When the power goes out, we want to take a shower. There's no hot water, and there's also no light. You know, it's nighttime. How do we see taking a shower? A lot of people don't like taking showers in the dark. You know,
yeah,
you know?
It's not an ideal way to do it. That's for sure.
But you know, you go and flip a light switch on. You don't think about it, and you know, not having that all of a sudden.
Yeah.
How would we cope? You know, just our cars are running strictly on electricity now, and I don't know.
Well, and even like, how are you going to start a gas car without a battery?
Agreed.
Right? Like,
exactly.
And how are you going to keep the battery charged, or like charge the battery if you have no electricity to charge it with?
Yeah. It's just it's thoughts like that I tend to have more often than I care to admit.
Guess we better really practice on making some of them water wheels.
Well, you know what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Get those back.
Yeah.
You know?
Educate yourself on like hydro dams. That'll probably be the most life-saving skill if you want power during this whole thing.
A roommate of mine of a little while ago, they didn't know how to write a letter, put a stamp on it, and send it off. They didn't know how to do that. And I'm like, that's interesting.
What? Really?
It's just, you know, you type up an email, send it off to whoever you need to, or a text or
like
something.
Snail mail really is not irrelevant, unless you're the Canadian government, in which case they only seem to send you important shit through mail. Which, like, you have every piece of my information. Call me.
That's
like,
so
what,
true,
right? Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's just, you know, hearing things like that where it's like, okay, this person, if I don't know, some weird thing happens and we can't send emails or texts anymore, and we need to go back to communicating through mail.
All it takes is one really strong solar storm that
exactly
we're not prepared for. And everything's out.
And everything's gone. And frick, like these older people and, you know, these seniors that were walking behind on the street and were getting upset because they're walking too slow, and we go around and cut them off, and we're like, Jesus, come on. You know, I'm thinking, okay, what if we needed their help?
Yeah.
know?
Well, that's just it,
you
right?
know?
Like a lot of, it's funny how politicized that sort of lifestyle has become too. Like, like if you're an urban living person, you think anybody who lives out in the woods or in the country is just some bigot who has like no education of what like modern life is, or like, you know, gender identity and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when the lights go out, the people living in the concrete jungles are going to be eating each other, and those guys are going to be
they're good
on it. Yeah,
they're good. They already got the off-grid stuff. Yeah, there's this guy that would come into the cafe I worked at for the year I worked at this cafe, and he was building his homestead basically on this chunk of property, like way outside of city limits, and just wanted to be off grid completely.
Yeah.
And just the thought that was going into it was like, I don't know, for example, the solar panels that he ordered, they were like so technologically advanced for solar panels. But, you know, he would set up however many he ordered, like, I don't know, 40, 50 of these things, and out in this big field, and they would follow the sun throughout the day kind of thing. But it's having that stuff, and then his water supply and all that kind of stuff. He could survive forever with his own ecosystem. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, that guy's got it figured out.
Well, absolutely.
Like, he's out of town, comes into town whenever he needs to, and he's building his dream home, basically. Has his family out there, doesn't pay the government anything.
Nice.
It's just, it's perfect.
Well, we won't mention his name.
No, we won't. For his own safety. But I'm like, man, that's unreal. And that would be so nice. It's an odd dream of mine to have that one day, you know, just to be able to leave.
You know, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think that's so odd, to be honest. Like, I think a lot of people have this inner desire to have self-sufficiency, like to not have to rely on, like, you know, we rely on the like the facilities and like all of the resources that are gathered by the city or the province for like almost everything, right? Not a lot of us, most of us, in fact, we're not capable of living as like a human would have even 100 years ago. You know? It's totally, there's so many things like, shit, man, I don't, even I grew up in Kamloops. You know, I'm not like a hunter by any means, right? But I had some experience in the bush and stuff like that. Right. I probably still wouldn't be able to get all that shit figured out. Like, you know, if Alone in the Dark happened, I don't know if I'd make it past a few months, you know? Like, I'm lucky enough to have some close friends back in Kamloops who are like multi-generation hunting families. Totally. Who like have a large stockpile of, I'm going to assume they're legal rifles, you know?
Let's assume.
And like, they're all very capable. And like, they've taught me some things. And like, you know, you learn some stuff growing up in that area just passively by being friends with those people, right? Exactly. But if it was just me and my wife, like, she'd probably do better than I would, because she at least knows how to garden. She has education on plants and soils and 100% medical stuff, all that shit.
That's how my partner is.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, she could probably make, like, I'd have like a big open cut and she'd be there with the mortar pestle with some exotic herbs. Like,
just like pushing it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It, like, yeah, it really does make you think, eh? Like, even like we're doing this podcast right now, and like, this is all, it's an expression of our artistic selves, right? And like a narrative. But when it comes down to like the reality of like the world outside of the technology we've made, like, these sorts of things wouldn't exist without it, right?
No, exactly. And, you know, I can understand AI, for example, and the way that that's going. It's super beneficial for many different reasons. But it's scary as hell. So scary. You know? Like a movie I watched recently called The Creator. Unreal. It's in the theater. Go see it. Okay. Like, it's unreal. But it's the concept of coexisting with AI. and it's so brilliantly done, but it's basically my interpretation of it. What it was pointing out how humans make mistakes. That's just the way humans are. That's what makes us human.
Yeah.
AI don't make mistakes. No. Like that, they are programmed to be perfect in their own regard.
Interestingly enough, though, actually, I was watching a podcast. I think it was Lex Friedman. He had a guy with a PhD in AI on, and they're starting to find that AI has and is capable of making human-like mistakes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's not good.
I know, right? Like it's not like, what is the AI version of forgetting to turn the stove off? Like
that's so true.
You just leave open access to the nuclear codes on Facebook or some shit. Like,
well, that's the interesting thing in that movie. They were what started the whole war, humans against AI, was a nuclear bomb went off in Los Angeles.
Whoa.
And humans were blaming AI for a miscalculation. And so they're like, we need to shut that down. But AI was like, that was not us. That was humans. They just are looking for something to blame. And so
they'd rather blame anything but themselves, right?
Yeah. And it's just the whole way that it's these little thoughts that I have sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, like I'm not saying I'm gonna drop everything and go live off grid and screw it,
but it's good to have a plan.
But I'm always kind of thinking, what could I learn here, or how could I do this without help from power or technology?
Big time, yeah.
It's just yeah.
I think that's a good spot to end off on, because we were at an hour, and washroom breaks are, at least for me, necessary.
That sounds good
now.
to me.
Yeah,
yeah.
Cool. Okay. So what can you? When I talk to you and I say, there are some incredible filmmakers out there.
Yes.
What are the first ones that actually come to mind? Your top 3. I know we've already covered Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
What are the others?
I think any filmmaker that is, I don't know, the first one that pops to my mind is Scorsese.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
And it's just, I watched Killers of the Flower Moon.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's a long-ass movie.
Well, it's a Scorsese movie, so I would assume nothing less, right?
But it's incredible in terms of him keeping simplicity in his projects.
Really?
It's just he uses what he has to use, and he can say whatever he needs to say with that. There's no crazy jib, and there's no crazy drone shots and all this stuff. It's just very simple camera movements.
Traditional film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And filmmakers like that stick to simplicity, that can still tell just as powerful of a story as somebody who, makes some crazy action movies like Michael Bay.
Or James Cameron.
Exactly. These crazy spectacles.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You want to
don't get me wrong,
but it's going to be a real plane. Yeah.
Right. It's cheaper than using VFX.
Yeah.
It's like, but, they're great filmmakers too.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that are just very simple and on the verge of traditional with it, those range to, many different people. But, Steven Spielberg, like the big names up there that have somewhat been pioneers in the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason Scorsese pops to the top of my head over others is because of how traditional he keeps it.
Yeah, he's never gone into the realm of hardcore special effect, VFX or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just for landscape stuff, you can tell it's visual, visual effects and some animation here and there for his big wide vistas that he's trying to cover. But
his establishers some of them are pretty prominent.
They are for sure. But yeah, he would be the one at the top of the list for sure. And then Tarantino for his.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we had Tarantino before there. So out of those 3, I know that you're also an actor. So which one of those would be your dream? Scorsese immediately? Yeah.
Immediately. And just because, not because of necessarily who he is, well, yes, but not just that. It's because of his ability to just let the actors improvise.
Yeah.
He for Killers of the Flower Moon, they let Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro and the actors on there improvise for like a 20-minute take, just because he was like, let's just see what we get. Like,
really?
I love that.
That's awesome.
Like,
yeah.
From an actor's point of view, that's so perfect.
Yeah.
And if you put in the right amount of prep and the work prior to filming, you could improvise a whole scene if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, so having that ability is awesome. You know, for somebody like David Fincher, who is like 99 takes in Facebook, like,
yeah,
you know, and very, very specific with his work, that's perfectly fine.
Isn't Tarantino that way too, though? Doesn't he also say, like, I wrote the script the way I wrote the script, so you have to run with the script? Yeah.
Yeah, and Aaron Sorkin and his writing and stuff like that. It's just very follow the script. The script is there for a reason. You know, it's that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I would pick Scorsese just because not only are they good movies, but they're the ability to play. Yeah. Which is what I love to do.
Film is playing, it's adults playing make-believe, right? It's
literally.
Kind of the whole, that's why I find it so hilarious that, like, it has such an impact on society and culture, at least in the Western world, right? Like, you know, we don't, it's almost unfortunate because, like, we don't look to scientists or like famous engineers or people who have like moved technology forward as like heroes as much as we look at like fucking Kim Kardashian or some shit, right?
So true.
And like it's but that's also kind of, I find, where the filmmakers really bear a responsibility to like make sure that what they put out there can affect the world in a better way rather than in a negative way.
Right.
And I find that,
that's
like,
interesting.
We have too much pressure on people to make something that just sells rather than make something that passes the message on that will, like you said, like have a message that like makes us feel a responsibility for certain things.
Yeah, well, and that's what I feel film should still be.
Yeah.
But it's definitely gone in the direction of profit.
Yeah.
Which grinds my gears.
Oh, does it now?
Oh, it grinds. Like, I get it. All right, we got to make money to be able to continue making movies and stuff like that. But the whole strike, this whole thing happening is a money thing.
Yeah.
Which I can see both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it a little bit, like, from like the angle of, you know, why would somebody like Brad Pitt need to go on strike, right?
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. I can understand it from the aspect of like the background actors that are a part of this, though.
Yeah.
Too, because like they were trying to. I heard something about how they were trying to get them to come in for a single day's pay, scan them with these machines, and own their likeness in perpetuity.
Yeah.
To the studio for the rest of their.
Yeah, and I won't get into that too much just because I don't know enough to really rant about it.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I do know about it, I'm like, how is that? It's just so wrong. And it's that whole AI thing. Disney released the first footage of their AI background for a movie that they're coming out with soon. It looks like shit.
Good.
Like, it looks so bad. And it's like, why? It's a whole money thing. The idea of paying these background people, hundreds of background people a day to do this, but it's the movie that you're paying for. If you want that movie to be high quality, like Disney used to have, you got to pay for it. And we all know they have the money to do it.
Fuck, absolutely.
They have the money to do it. It's
a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a very unfortunate part of the way society over here has developed, where corporations they're responsible for so much innovation, right? But at the end of the day, the whole function of it is dollars. And that's where it really starts to fucking ruin everything for you. You know, it's like if a company is worth hundreds of billions of dollars and for some reason they still can't seem to fix the real issues in our world because that's going to take away from their literally hundreds of billions of dollars. There's something fucked up about that.
Totally.
You know, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why can't you pay people more?
Right.
The only reason is because there's just greedy people at the top who, you know, well, then I can't make the payment on my second yacht, you know? Not even your first one. It's like, I can't afford to have a 5-ship fleet at this point. we're going to need to cut some people off. We're going to start some layoffs here because Bezos can't get 2 bridges disassembled to get his boat through. It's like insane.
Yeah. No, but I have a question for you though. And I've been curious about this for some time. Thinking back to it, I may have asked you forever ago.
Okay.
But knowing what the industry is these days, why do it?
That's a good question. Like when you say knowing what it is, you mean like about like the whole, just how it works and
just
everything?
The whole thing. Like knowing that there's no consistency with it. There's the long hours when you're working. There's, when you're looking at all the negatives, why do it?
Because nothing in my life has ever been consistent.
That is not what I was expecting you to say.
Yeah. The only consistency I've found in my life is the consistency of non-consistency.
Damn.
Yeah. I've never, anything that has been consistent to me has been something that I have quickly grown tired of, bored of, and like my perception of it really changes quickly. I don't think that humans in my, okay, I won't be meta with it. I'll just be personal. So I don't feel that I should be defined by a career.
Right.
I feel like an aspect of what you do to make your money should be as minimal as who you go to get a haircut from. It is a category of your life that allows you to fund the passions or the people or the things that you want to do that matter more to you, right?
Totally.
I like working in film still because it is one of the only places a guy like myself with not much, if any, post-secondary education can find a starting point and get in with people who are artistic and intelligent and like a vast array of personality types. Like,
right.
I had 22 jobs before I got into film. Oof. From the age of 14 when I was a dishwasher, like going all the way up. I've worked in sales. Yeah. I've worked in labor and construction. I've worked in fucking everything, except for being in a warehouse. I guess that's one I haven't done.
Okay.
And through every one of those, it's like in order to work in this industry, let's take carpentry, for example, you almost have to be a certain personality type.
Totally.
Like there is a certain type of person, and I'm not saying for the entire thing, but generally, 70 to 80% of the people you work with in trades are going to be people who, they go home and they have simple pleasures and stuff, and like they look forward to going home to a 6-pack, and if they have a beautiful woman, then go home to their wife, and they like the idea of having a 9 to 5 and just living that way. Yeah. I found in my own personal experiences going through it though that there were a lot of men that I would be looking to eventually replace as I continue my career. I would be like this foreman or whoever it is that's in charge of the crew, and they weren't happy. You could feel it in them when they're around you that this job is all they have, and like they kind of get to this point where everything that they were taught feels like a lie, and they haven't been raised in a time where it was acceptable to be a vulnerable man. Yeah. So they end up finding other ways to mediate that through substances and other coping mechanisms, right? And that was just not something I could do anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that I was able. Yeah. As much as I liked building things, I love.
Hey, you make use out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You still do it. And
like there's skills that carry on for a long time, but like it was a 9 to 5, I just couldn't do it anymore. In film, there's a lot of problems with it. Don't get me wrong. Like the hours are way too long, as much as the money's good. But I mean, when one of the number one causes of death in the industry you work in is sleep deprivation.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah. That's a problem, right? But there's also the flip side where I will put myself through that for X amount of days, and then when it's done, like we were talking before, I can take my time.
Totally.
And I've made enough money to be able to take that time afterwards, right? And just the variety of people. Like I get around people who are numbers oriented, people who are visually like artistically oriented. You get around people who are people, like myself. I'm.
You're a person.
Yeah, I am a person. Yeah. I consider myself like kind of bordering between people and artistic, but because of my ability to mingle and schmooze, I guess, and just like my openness towards different types of people, that side of my personality has definitely become a lot more prominent. A big part of this project, this company that we're doing here at Omnia Theater, and my podcast, The Deficit, it's the most the biggest jump into the artistic side of myself that I've had since I was in high school playing guitar and like being in bands and stuff. Like I finally, after all of my 20s, I turned 30, and this whole thing the universe just threw it my way through great guys like Ryan, our founder, and Carl and Ricardo. And like, I felt like once I got into film, it was kind of the end of a struggle to find myself in Kamloops.
I completely know how you feel there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so I just kept on going with what I felt was right. And I did learn to say no, too, which was a huge part. And in film, you can do that and people will fucking get it. They don't have to be like, oh, well, you just don't want to work. It's like, no, they've lived the same life you're living. They understand that if you feel like you need more time, that's okay. Totally. And they'll still call you after, right? And I think in doing that, it's just the pieces just came together, and now I'm like, the fact that I got to build this was the first thing I've ever actually built where I was like, holy shit, like I can conceptualize and create, and I was excited about it. This is a startup, right? Like we're all doing this on like passion and dreams for gas, right? Totally. Like there's not like a whole bunch of like fucking money involved, but we had enough to build this, and Ryan let me be the guy to do it. So I was out here. Probably took me about a week and a half, 2 weeks in total, like doing this and framing things in, and like I hadn't lifted a power tool in 5 years, and I was excited. And so I guess that's why I do film, because it's the kind of industry that allows me to not emphasize my work as who I am, rather than let my work emphasize who I am.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Sorry, that's the best I can do. Answer. Not bad, yeah? Cool. I appreciate that. What about you? Like, why do you do it?
Well, you basically hit everything on the head there with my reasons too. It's the one that got me, what you were saying about the only consistency is inconsistency.
Yeah.
Like it's just the same thing. I would find some sort of consistency, and I would get so bored of it.
It becomes so drab.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And just the idea that we're making something that will last forever, regardless of what capacity we're doing it at. My girlfriend and I were watching Harry Potter, and this season, all the time, it's every year in my family, Harry Potter comes out.
Okay, yeah, our spouses have to me. She's nuts on the Harry Potter thing.
Yeah. And so just what hit me this past little bit, like quite hard, was so many of those actors aren't living anymore. I'm thinking, man, that's crazy, because now when I watch these movies, when these characters are saying goodbye to each other, I'm like, man, like they're genuinely saying goodbye in a sense. Like, but these movies that these people put so much time and effort into, even if you aren't on screen, you didn't write it, you didn't direct it, whatever, you still were a part of this thing that is going to last forever, which is incredible in my eyes.
So long as we still have ways to, play the movie.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and and back to that idea of having consistent inconsistency is just, it's almost, in a twisted way, it's comforting.
This might be a bit of an out of nowhere question, but have you ever seen anybody about possibly having like ADHD or anything like that? Have you ever wondered?
No, I haven't. Like, that's the thing, is I love sitting down and literally sitting. This sounds weird, but sitting down and sitting still. I could do that all day if I let myself.
Cool.
It's just this whole thing of who knows, if I was to go see somebody about it, who knows?
Well, because maybe I only ask because I recently got that diagnosed. That's the whole play on the name of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
But that's one thing that seems to be a common theme throughout each person who's been diagnosed. Like a lot of them, it's kind of like, how autism's on a spectrum, right? Like there's people on the savant side and people on like the hypersensitive side, things like that. ADHD is kind of similar. There's like a whole array of things that can be a result of the same chemical process in your brain, right?
Yeah.
But finding consistency out of inconsistency and you consistently being inconsistent is one of the major traits in it, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're called 90%ers because we always get to 90% and don't finish, right?
Yeah. No, it's like when I get started with something and this is the part that confuses me about myself a little bit is I need some sort of routine. Like my morning routine, that's like my bread and butter. If I start my day off nice and early, have a good coffee, and I sit down and relax for a little bit. I just take some time to myself, breathe, journal maybe, or watch a show, whatever it is. Just in the morning, wake up early, have a coffee, decent breakfast, and relax. That is the best possible way I could start my day. And
that sounds like a great day.
It's a great start to the day. And then, and then I'm fine with whatever comes at me throughout the day. And it's that idea that I know I have some sort of consistent routine that keeps me somewhat grounded. As soon as I lose that routine,
chaos.
Oh man, I'm like, geez, I need that because I feel like I'm like floating at times.
And do you find it's really hard to get the routine back after you've lost it after a while?
Yeah. And
that's tough, man.
Yeah. So, I do. I do love the inconsistency.
Yeah.
Keeps things exciting.
Yeah.
But I need that moment throughout the day of some sort of consistency.
Yeah. You need to have something that keeps you grounded.
Exactly.
Right? It's like if everything else is so uncontrollable, what are the things that I can control in my day?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's how it was when coming back down here. I was saying to my partner, I'm like, I feel like it takes me a couple days just to kind of get situated, but I feel like I'm almost just floating just above ground until I figure out this routine that I need.
You kind of have it, you're trying to acclimate.
Yeah.
And it's like trying to find that starting point for your routine. Yeah.
Once I find it, then I feel like, okay, I kind of got a footing here. This is good. But up until then, I feel like I'm just floating around and I feel so off.
Yeah.
So I tend to be somebody that can find the routine relatively quick, not easily, but quick, but up until that point, it's a lot of just coasting.
So what do you find to be usually, what is one of those things in your morning? You said you had a cup of coffee, good breakfast kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do one of those elements have more weight to you than the other?
For sure.
Okay,
coffee.
So coffee?
And it's not me just making and it's not having an addiction necessarily to coffee and caffeine. It's espresso. And this, I might nerd out here for a second.
Oh, go ahead, man. I like a good espresso rant. Let's hear it. Let's go.
Partly why I went out and got a job at a cafe was because I wanted to learn more about coffee.
Why people go bartend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in the mornings, I treat espresso more as a hobby.
Cool.
So like the more pieces I have to make a good shot and to have it come out nice and creamy and full.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Oh, dude. And I feel that on a
and level. It's just when I have a good tasting coffee in the morning and when the milk is frothed very nicely and you got a little bit of latte art on there.
Oh, fuck yeah.
It's fantastic.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. It like coats this sounds so weird. It coats my mouth so nicely.
That doesn't sound weird. That's what people look for in a good coffee, right?
And that's when I have the coffee not turn out the way that I want it to. It's the one thing about my life that I'm quite particular about. And so when my coffee doesn't turn out the way that I want it to,
whole day's fucked.
Oh, Jesus.
Really, eh?
Oh, it's like the episode from Modern Family. Phil flicks his underwear up, and if he doesn't catch it in the morning, his whole day's off.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Man, I just finished watching that whole series. My wife and I, we'd never seen it before. And like earlier this year, we started watching it.
So good.
It's great.
So good.
I cried at the end. I really did. When I knew it was all over, goddamn.
But yeah, no, that definitely coffee is the one thing that carries the most weight. And it's not because I'm looking for a good cup of joe. It's just I care. That's the one thing that I have complete and utter control over.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, I'm totally fine with, I don't care where necessarily I sit down and relax. It's just.
Do you think that's because of your inner artist and just wanting to, like, obviously making this coffee in some way or another, it's kind of like your art form, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of creativity to start your day off with your little latte art and like making sure that the pieces are all there in the right place and it comes out just delicious, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And most people would envision art as something you see or hear or like, I guess, mostly off those two senses actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's
a lot of people don't really look at the culinary arts as art, but it really is because it's enticing to your smell, your taste,
for sure,
visually, the sound of the machine brewing when it finally starts pouring into the cup,
for sure,
and steaming. Man,
you're talking
steaming
my
that
language,
milk
man.
when you hear that steamer, that's it for me.
Yeah.
And you just, man,
Is this food porn? What is this?
Right? Oh fuck, man. Someday, don't worry, I'll do some ASMR food porn on here. Just wait. Today, we're making Côte de Roux.
Oh my God.
It's going to be a delicious chicken sandwich with some tasty buffalo sauce.
That's like freakishly good.
And then we'll have like a deep fryer right here.
Wow,
and
right here.
The bubbling going, And then that first crunchy bite.
Oh.
Right?
Oh my God.
We're going to have some chicken sandwiches after this, man.
Wow.
I know some good ones.
Okay, I love that.
But like, I think like, would you say that might be why it can throw your whole day off if it's wrong? Is because like in some sense, it is kind of like a little project to start your day off with.
Well, yeah, I never really thought about it in that sense. Like, but yeah. Like if you look at my coffee setup right now, it is like impeccable.
Wicked.
Everything has its own spot, and if it's not in the right spot, I need to fix it before I move on. Like, I don't know, the espresso puck being left in the portafilter, or in the basket, if it's left in the basket and sits in the espresso machine, I know it's bad for the espresso machine, but it's those little things where I'm like, I need to make sure that everything is in place after you make your shot.
Yeah.
Clean it out, set it all up, put it there, get ready for the next one tomorrow.
So you're at a cafe.
Yes.
Which espresso drink do you go for?
It's called a cortado.
Okay.
Cortado. It's there's 3 different names for it: a cortado, a Gibraltar, or a piccolo latte. And it's basically just
cool.
It's basically just this small, I want to say about around 8 ounce, or 6 ounce, one of the two, drink. It's just espresso and milk, but
nice.
It's like a latte, but you get more of the espresso taste.
Cool. Nice.
People go to a cafe and get a latte. That's totally fine. Those can taste great. It's just the milk is so
overpowering.
It's like a 90% to 10% ratio.
Yeah.
And you don't really taste any of the coffee.
Yeah.
And the point of getting an espresso is to taste the espresso.
The espresso.
Yeah, see.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
That's my go-to, man. It's small, so you don't get a huge chunk of milk in the morning, and you taste the espresso.
Nice. Dude, I want some now, just thinking of that.
Oh, and there's a place in town called Prototype. They roast the beans right on the counter.
Nice.
And it's near the freshest coffee I've had. Next to me working at a place called the Vic in Kamloops.
Oh, you worked at the Vic while you were there?
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
And I roasted the beans in the basement, and then that same day I took some upstairs and
I bet
made
that
them.
was just the best smell ever.
It was wonderful.
Oh, dude, fuck
wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, and the tastes and the fullness of that coffee is just that's the way to do it, man.
So which of your I'm getting a vibe here that your sense of smell or taste are probably very big factors in like your daily satisfaction of life or whatever, right?
I'm no Gordon Ramsay, but
you know, you're also a filmmaker, which means you emphasize visual and auditory
100%
stimuli as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those do you think you get more instant satiation from?
Hearing.
Yeah.
What I hear is like, I've found this recently. It's just whatever I hear has so much more of an impact. And it's mainly with the score, the music, whatever it may be, but also the sound design, what you hear when
Foleying and all
yeah,
that.
exactly. The Foley and all that. If that is like, I didn't know for the longest time how much Foley there is in a project.
It's like literally fucking everything. Yeah. Like, what's the point of having a mic on set at this point?
Well, that was my thought. I'm like, well, I just should scrap the mic and then add it all in post.
Yeah. Like, it's like, fucking might as well. But like, ADR everything.
Yeah. Like, honestly, it's like, yeah, we need a book closed. Yeah. Frick. Put it in post. Yeah. Done. But I didn't realize how important and how impactful sound is. And when I hear something that is just beautiful, like Phantom Thread, for example, in Paul Thomas Anderson's film.
I have to watch this Phantom Thread. I have not seen it
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And there's some videos on YouTube like ASMR in movies. And there's this scene in Phantom Thread where he's a tailor, this guy. A fashion designer more like. He makes dresses and stuff like that for women, but there's a scene where he's making this or fitting this dress on this girl, and they get all the sounds like to ASMR quality sounds, extremely detailed.
Yes.
And all the music kind of cuts out, and it's just him doing his thing. It is the most satisfying thing to listen to. And it makes it, when you hear stuff like that, that makes your project. Is like, you add music over stuff like that. Like if you were to cut the music out of a film that has really good Foley and really good sound design, cut the score, cut the music out, and it's still a really good project.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sound is such a huge factor. And like, if in a film it doesn't sound real.
Yeah.
If the sound is off somehow.
Yeah.
It really takes you away from the experience. Yeah. Never mind the music and stuff, but like.
Well, yeah. And I didn't think, I honestly didn't think much of it for the longest time. And it wasn't until I made a short film, I don't know how many years ago now. It wasn't too long. It's on my website though. And I got somebody to score it, make up an original score, that kind of thing for it. And I told them what it was about, the characters' intentions, all that kind of stuff. And I got the score after he finished it. And I'm like, oh man, this is
not
at all what I was looking for. But it was crunch time. I had to release the thing. It's been long enough. I'm like, you know what? It's cool. This is like my second or third short film. So let's just release it. Let's
have a little faith and run with it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool.
Every time I listen to it, man, I'm like, oh,
still gets you.
It still gets me.
Well, that's the thing with like, I find that is one of the things with art, right? Is like, it's an interpretation. So like when you tell someone that it's got to sound like you want it to sound this way, this is how you're imagining it. And especially if like it's a person without like education into the same expertise that this other person's doing it for, it can be interpreted entirely different. You know, like I've got some friends of mine back in Kamloops that are working on an intro track for the show for me right now.
Cool.
And like there's this song by do you ever listen to any hip hop from like the 90s and stuff?
Yeah.
Like Rakim.
Yeah.
So he's got that song Guess Who's Back.
Yeah.
I just got reminded about it when I went to go watch that second Spider-Verse movie with Miles Morales. They're introducing him and it's like, it's awesome, right? Probably the best Spider-Man. Honestly, people are going to be mad at me for this, but I think that's the best Spider-Man flick out there. Like, I think they're doing great things with that.
For sure.
Yeah. But when it introduces him in Brooklyn and you hear those fucking horns hit, that track, that hip-hop beat, and Rakim comes on, and I was like, that is exactly the kind of vibe that I want going into this this track here, like to introduce this, because like, you know, I'm playing off the deficit, right? Mm-hmm. My deficit, my attention deficit, and like I find that those sorts of beats and like just the way that they make tracks like that for hip hop music, it appeals to that because it can have so many different elements from so many different types of music, right?
Yeah.
It's the only kind of genre where you can hear like brass and like the 808s and like some guitar or whatever else in there.
Yeah.
And you can include soul singing and like, and then also rhyming. And like, it's really a place where you can just merge all the elements of music into one thing, right?
100%. Yeah.
So like, and I also got this mad love for Rakim, man. He's just got like, he's like one of the originals, you know, he's so good. That Brooklyn era hip hop was just, hits me. But like, he sent it back, the first one, and it was like just a little too undergroundy sounding. It had like some slow piano work in it and stuff. And I was like, not quite. Like, I'm just trying to word it to him in a way where like, I want some more brass. Like, I wanted some brass hits like in that song. I don't want it to sound exactly like Rakim's song by any means, right? But I want to have that same vibe. I want to have that get up and go kind of like it's game time kind of feel to it. And the second one he sent me, it's getting a lot closer now. But even then, it's like, you know, what ways can you tell somebody that you've hired to make something for you that it's got to sound exactly this way if you don't know how to communicate that? You know, like I don't know how to use the Pro Tools and the Universal tools that he uses to like produce beats and stuff. I couldn't tell you what like memory bank to go into on these programs to find like this particular snare or whatever. Like that's way outside of my zone.
Oh, totally.
Like, you know,
I presented a project to a musician, and I wanted them to score it for me because they had a great ear.
Is this a different one from the other?
Yeah, a different one. And they were taught by somebody who was taught by Hans Zimmer. So I thought, frick, let's do this.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, let's do this thing. He made something, sent it to me. I sent him the script, sent him everything, and just wanted to get his take on it and see what he would do. And I didn't know how to communicate it to him that it was not really anything near what I was looking for, without it sounding like I'm calling it bad, because it's not bad. It's really good. It's just not
what you want,
what I need.
Yeah.
And I told him, this sounds too Hallmarky.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Just kick him in the nuts, eh? Right, just going straight for the balls. Oh, man, Jesus.
Never heard back from the guy.
Oh, God. Too Hallmarky.
Too Hallmarky.
Whoa, there must have been some jingle bells in there or something, eh?
Well, he was like so passionate about this thing he sent me to. So I was what a mistake to say that, but no.
Sounds like you need a people person.
Oh, I do, man.
You need a person. Yeah.
You need a person. No, he sent me this big long email explaining the song and how he did certain things and what he took and all this. And he's like, and I put this interesting bit in it. I took sounds of whales and made it into this, and take a listen, see what you think.
Whoa.
When I listened to it, I'm like, holy shit, this is really good. Like,
just not something really for the project just that you had in mind.
Yeah, not at all for what I need, but this is really good.
Cool.
And I'm like, oh, how do I do it?
Did you at least lead with the sugar before letting him off with
totally,
the bitter? Yeah,
totally.
Okay.
I'm like, this is so cool. And the whale noises, you weren't kidding. Like, that really worked. And then I ended it off with, I guess,
just a little too
shot to the
Hallmarky.
nuts. So, like, oh, man.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, except for people who work in Hallmarks.
Yeah, well,
that's usually a bit of a shot.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, well, you know,
I've worked in a lot of those movies. I know exactly the kind of sound you're talking about. It's
anybody who has worked on those knows exactly what that is.
It's particular. That's for sure.
Yes, it is.
Wow,
but,
man.
Yeah,
and Hans Zimmer too. Like Jesus. I mean, like that would. Yeah, that I'd be excited to.
Well, when I heard him say his name, even if he didn't work directly with him, he worked with somebody who worked under him. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, this guy must be decent at what he does, you know, to get into a not a group, but, you know, into an ecosystem of people, and that, involving him. Like,
okay. Back onto the general topic of sound.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people generally, they don't understand just how powerful sound is. Cause like,
oh yeah,
you can taste, you can smell, you can see, like all those senses, right?
Yeah.
But like they all can have effects on your state of being, but
Totally.
nothing as heavily as sound. Cause like your entire existence is based on vibrations.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like our bodies, the particles that make up our bodies are held together in a harmonic state. It's called harmonic resonance, right? Your atoms, subatomic particles, are vibrating at a frequency.
Totally.
And you can use sound to change that state.
Oh yeah.
They've done like studies at I think it was Stanford, but they managed to find like a person's harmonic resonance, and then they have them listen to certain sounds or music, and then they look at the harmonic resonance afterwards. And if they're feeling sad, their brain will then adjust the harmonic resonance to a lower state of vibration. If you are happy, your harmonic resonance is at a higher state of vibration.
Right.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this whole idea of like, I don't know, if you want to translate into like spiritual stuff, like the ancients, insert ancient civilization here. Let's say the Egyptians or something.
Yeah.
People always wonder about how they built the pyramids. And there's this ongoing theory that like they've had a knowledge of sound and how to use sound to like create like levitation and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. And the Great Pyramid of each one of these 3 pyramids they have, underneath the capstone, there's a large hollow chamber that goes all the way down to the main embodiment of it. And there's grooves etched in at different heights of this chamber.
Yeah.
And they found that it actually, when the wind passes over it, it radiates different sounds.
Seriously?
Yeah. So they think that one of the, I guess you'll call them the fringe theories outside of like the, mainstream archaeology. I don't want to sound like a total crackpot saying this, but is that they were harmonic resonance chambers to actually create energy.
Interesting.
That they used to be these huge power plants, essentially.
What the hell?
Yeah. Because like Tesla, the old engineer, he wasn't an engineer. He was like a futurist, right?
Yeah.
They used to say that Tesla could see the wavelengths of reality, that he could actually perceive the world on the vibrations that it existed on.
Yeah.
And he had inventions that would like transmit energy wirelessly without needing, like you could, he was restricted by the technology of his time.
Right.
But there's this running theory that maybe the pyramids tapped into that exact thing that Tesla used to talk about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And this is a theory that's going around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
or conspiracy almost.
It's becoming more and more popular because there's no other theories as to why that part of the pyramid has been constructed in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
I have not heard of this, so this is interesting.
It's wild, yeah.
It's some
nuts stuff.
Yeah.
A couple of different podcasts I listened to mention it, but yeah, like it's a really crazy way to think about it. Like, and that's sound though. Like, sound is everything.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
It's what always got me about why I was so interested in music when I was younger. It's like you're an alchemist of noise, of vibration.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my mom, she got me and my brothers. We didn't really get into music. My mom was already into it. Like, one of her dreams before having kids was to be in the Disney Symphony.
Oh, cool! Hey, nice. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like that would have been so cool.
Yeah,
right?
Fuck yeah.
So she's had a musical bone in her body her whole life, and we grew up with music in our house. And, but yeah, no, and she was also very curious about musical therapy and how that helps people with autism or with other mental.
Time. Oh yeah, big time.
Anything like that. So it's when she started looking into that more and getting a better understanding for it. It's just mind blowing what music can actually do for people, even a simple chord.
Yeah, like you can feel it, right? It's like you ever listen to like name the song if you can think of it, but something that's come on and just you get that tingle up your spine and goosebumps.
Yeah,
the hair on your arm stands up, and you don't know why, but it just you're like, what the fuck about this song is making me feel like this?
Yeah. Well, and it's like it's this specific note, or it's okay, not even a note. It's a French horn.
Okay.
The sound of a French horn that's played very, very smooth is so nice to me.
Wow,
like,
that's cool. That's
I don't
cool,
know,
man.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's just what's an example I could use? The Dark Knight, Batman.
Okay.
And that score that Hans Zimmer does with the two French horns, he was saying, and when he performs it live, he puts the French horns on either side of the Odeon, and at that point, it's just they're up higher than everything else, pointing down. So it just kind of gives a different type of volume and feel to that instrument. But
wild.
When that comes in the film or in the performance, it's just I feel it so. Oh, I just love the feeling of it. Mm-hmm. It's so nice.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's really cool. Like they can really set a mood.
Totally.
And like the Hans Zimmer is like just light years ahead of most anybody who's studied music and stuff. Like he's like for that Dune, right? He like invented new instruments for it. Like
what awesome. Is that about?
Like you go into this like music recording studio, there's like all these Dr. Seuss looking things honestly. Like all around the place. Like it's fucking wild, man. Like
it is. Yeah, but no, with Alone in the Dark, that first part there, when I showed it at the film festival in the theater, and that first sound hit, I was scared as hell, thinking it wouldn't work out. It would sound all crackly and broken because it just, when you listen to it on the computer in your headphones.
But it really worked.
It really worked, and it was before that. Prior to that, there was another short film that played, and it was a comedy, and people were laughing so hard. I'm like, and I knew I was up next. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I got to follow that. Oh man. And so, yeah, everybody was laughing and talking and everything. And the theater was a little loud at that point because people were talking about how funny it was and all this. And then Alone in the Dark started, and just that hit, everybody just went silent. I was like, yes, cool. It worked. And just, like you said, like sound has such an impact on everything, and it will grab your attention if it's there, and like,
I mean, it's not, I have a hard time finding the proper words to describe how I feel about it, because it is just such like it's something that surpasses language,
Yeah.
It really is, like, since we're on the topic of music anyhow, fuck it.
Yeah.
What is that song that you can think of, or like a musician where you're like, fuck, I would love to have this in something I make, like some kind of, and why? And then tell me why.
Ooh. I would love to have if Sam Smith, like however many years ago, no offense, but when he was good.
Yeah.
When they were good. Yeah. When they were good. It's just, it was, I don't know, their music was just so,
it hit you in the heart.
Yeah. It was really good music. And it's just seemed to go in a completely different direction now. And I think that was due to record label things.
Yeah, didn't they do a James Bond recently?
Yeah. The James Bond song that Sam Smith did way back when, it was between him and, I'm probably getting this wrong, Red Hot Chili Peppers or something. But it was like totally out of left field band to do this James Bond song that didn't quite fit the prior movies, wasn't it? Oh no, the Billie Eilish one was like a different movie, wasn't it? Yeah. The Sam Smith one, it was basically a foot race at that point to see who could get it done first, because the James Bond production or whatever couldn't choose between the two of them, so they just said whoever gets this done first. And Sam Smith was able to get it in one take and send it off.
Wow.
And that's the one they used in the film. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what they did with that one song and with those lyrics and the notes to make it what it is, like, oh, it's just incredible. And I would love to have something like that in a project, just something that's very full and the words left me, vulnerable, just very vulnerable and open, but it carries such a weight to it that, you don't find often.
James Bond is also unique in that sense where, like, I don't know any other movie franchise where the person they hire on to do the intro track is just as important as the person they hire to play James Bond.
Totally.
Like,
yeah, Billie Eilish for the No Time to Die.
Adele before that,
exactly.
like Tom Jones way back in the day, right? Like they had it was always someone in like that vein of like almost crooner pop kind of vibe, but they really had to nail it, or else they were fucking.
Yeah, it sets the tone for the whole film.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you listen to No Time to Die while watching that movie, there's moments through it that Hans Zimmer put in the score. Billie Eilish, her voice just hums of her voice throughout it, and just it really showed the impact of the artist themselves, like the musician.
Yeah,
just the sounds that they were able to take from that artist and put it into the film to elevate everything.
Yeah, it really is.
It was incredible.
Yeah, it plays such a huge part for it. What do you think, in your experience, has been the most immersive artist you've listened to? Like someone where like you feel like you're getting lost in like the music that they play.
Ooh. This is going to be a little odd, maybe, but Michael Jackson.
Fucking A. No, that's not odd at all, man. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason he was so big. And
for
like,
sure.
So
his music is just amazing. Like, even still.
It still holds up.
Like, I don't listen to it 24/7 or anything, but it's just his music, and also it carries a different weight, now I feel.
Well, and back when Thriller came out, and there was that 30-second intro atmospheric thing going on, right? It was like...
Or Prince.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yes. Prince is wicked. Yeah. I appreciate artists like that a lot. For me, it's a little bit outside of that genre, actually. I was just thinking about this the other day. I do have a penchant, a lean towards like the hardcore stuff. Like growing up, I was very into like metal and punk and things like that. But have you ever heard of the band Lamb of God?
No.
Okay, so they're like...
Sounds like death metal.
Oh, yeah, they are. They're fucking wicked. Really good. I'll try not to rant too much about them because, like, when I go on talking about, like, the skills that these band members possess are unreal. But there's a song that they have called Descending. And, like, it's just got this... There's, like, this volume fade that's happening where it starts kind of quiet and, like, echoey, and then you start hearing this guitar coming in, doing this, like, two-note... It's kind of like a constant humming, and then you hear this doo-doo, 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 and like it fades in and in and in more and more, and then you hear this almost like a cymbal, like a and wall of sound hits you, and it's just like boom, these big double kicks start going off, and like there's this atmosphere going all of a sudden that like makes you feel like you're just surrounded by this wall of sound and power. It's unreal. Like some of their music is stuff that I've never been a huge fan of people who like scream a lot in music, even though I'm a heavy metal fan, right?
Yeah.
But with their singer, Randy Blythe, he's actually revered as one of the best in the industry for the screaming, or whatever you want to call it. There's death growls, false chords, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Because there's like several different techniques to it.
And there's actual names for that.
Oh, yeah. There's vocal instructors who specifically teach people how to use those parts of their vocal cords. Because singing takes one, maybe two parts of your vocal cords.
Yeah.
To do a full array of what is referred to as like metal screaming or growling.
Yeah.
It takes all four portions of your vocal cords.
Some
that you can't consciously actually channel into until you've like they're way down here.
Seriously.
Yeah. And the singer from Lamb of God, Randy Blythe, is a master on all four levels. Like he can do these loud, shrill screams. He can do like these super deep, guttural, demon sounding vocals, and he can do everything in between. And like he's also a really good singer.
Right. Okay, so this is something I've been curious about then for a long time, since you have a little bit of knowledge on that.
Yeah.
What the hell are they saying?
Yeah,
like,
so
are they saying something?
That right there is where I find if they're good or not. Right?
How so?
Well, because if they do it right, you can still hear the words.
Okay.
If they're emphasizing just the sound and like they don't take the time to know how to do it while they're pronouncing the word,
right?
It just sounds bad.
Well, that's all whenever I do hear that kind of music,
yeah, it's hard, dude. Like I understand
some hard stuff.
Yeah,
but it's after I need to, when I see these musicians doing their stuff and doing that kind of music, it's mind-boggling what they're doing. Like on the guitar, on the drums, on the bass, whatever it is, it's shocking what they're doing on stage to make those songs.
Yeah, there's a lot of technical prowess that goes into it. It's not for everybody, obviously, like because it is loud and some people think it's like it does feel angry at times, right? But it's like any form of music where you're expressing certain emotions, right?
Right. Well, it's interesting too, just because like we're almost kind of complete opposites in that sense. Because I love listening to jazz.
Oh man, I'm right there with you too.
Okay.
My playlist is like, I've got like fucking Quincy Jones to Slayer. Like it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's just like.
Who do you listen to jazz wise? What's your go-to guy?
I don't have necessarily a go-to for jazz. Like I'm not into jazz.
Like you don't know like
specific people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the sound.
I love the sound of it. I love the fact that it might come off as though it's really chill and all that, but in reality it's not.
Yeah. It is technically crazy music.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's like things like fusion jazz where it's like,
oh yeah,
it sounds like they're all just playing completely different things, but somehow they're like in key.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I have a hard time getting around that kind of stuff, but I do like Coltrane and like, classy jazz guys and stuff.
Yeah.
But even them, like for them, fusion jazz to them is like technical death metal to someone who starts off listening to Metallica, right? It's the same idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I love when a jazz musician is doing a cover to something, say, I don't know, performing something, but they all have their own unique way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you can pick out certain sounds that are from that original track, but they're going all over the map.
Yeah.
But landing on the right note.
Yeah.
It's like, I love that.
It's crazy, right? It feels like they're like going off onto something and then all of a sudden they're right back there at the right time.
Exactly.
And like, you're like, oh wait, it's this song.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Very cool. Who do you plan on using if you had your choice of any musician? I guess you already said Sam Smith, but like, is that someone you absolutely want him in one of your
in terms of his
feeling?
His feeling, but again, their past feeling.
Yeah.
Their past ability. I love their old stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use them today, I think, just with the way that they make, like their type of music that they make now is just very pop-like. It's very...
The last one I heard by them was that Unholy track. And that was kind of cool.
Which one was that?
Oh
yeah.
Something on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it's a good song.
Yeah.
Not what I would use in something.
Yeah, he was they were kind of like a crooner vibe before though.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
Kind of like Janelle Monáe. Do you ever listen to Janelle Monáe? Yeah,
for sure.
That like tuxedo jazz kind of.
Oh yeah,
happy vibe. I love that.
Yeah.
Like Tightrope by Janelle Monáe to me will always be like one of the coolest sounding songs I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No, if I was to have, there's not necessarily a specific musician that I would look to have be a part of a project, more like the type of music.
Like a genre.
Yeah. Like I love the sound of like African drums and very like Middle East strings,
like
love
sitars and stuff like that, right? Yeah,
love that stuff.
We had a musician on here a little while ago named Sophie.
Yeah,
and she was saying how she was raised in a household where like her mom was, from I think it was India, or somewhere in the Middle East. But she was saying how her mom is like both her parents were musicians.
Yeah.
Her dad was European and her mom was from like the Middle East Asia area. Or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, but she got to grow up around all these different instruments and sounds and stuff. And like we got on to talking about like the amazing sounds that come out of like India and the Middle East, like sitars and like those gourd drums that they do that create that like big raindrop sound almost, right? Like there's like so many different ways to manipulate sounds that so many cultures have found different ways to do. You know?
Oh yeah, totally.
It's unreal. Like, and yeah, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there where like the sound that comes out of like Middle Eastern instruments, it really creates an atmosphere.
Totally.
You know, it's got like maybe it's the vibration that comes after they pluck a string or just like the way that it, the way it sounds, I guess.
Well,
right?
and it like almost immediately puts a location in your head.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just a stereotype. I don't know.
Well, I've seen some videos on social media of like, soundtrack for Middle Eastern movie or whatever, and it's just got like a panning shot of the pyramids and then like one person like and a camel and then like they throw another one in and it's like some woman doing like a Middle Eastern vocal run and then
totally.
Yeah. But I mean like, you could still get the vibe without putting those typical things in there too, right? Like
for sure.
I mean, fuck, like that whole region of the world is both ancient and like just draped in culture and like history and man, and the colors and foods and like the way that the aesthetics of that entire part of the world came to be is just mind blowing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my mom went over to Paris not too long ago or wait a minute, may have been like a year ago now. Jeez.
Cool.
But like she was saying over here, like I've never been to Europe, but
neither. I want to go so bad.
She found it like amazing to go over there and see a building that was there, I don't know, for small numbers' sake, just, 500 years ago.
Oh, man, in France, they still have stone cobble roads laid by the Romans. Like, it's ancient. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And over here, Canada's turned 150 years old?
Yeah. Like, and our indigenous peoples, they didn't exactly build, like, concrete structures, right? They were a nomadic people. They, like, all their stuff was...
Yeah, like if you go to the reserve in Kamloops and go to the museum there, you'll see some really cool things.
Yeah. But none of them were like metallurgy things that would like, it was a different type of lifestyle that lived out here.
Exactly.
Simplistic,
Yeah. So I find that so cool about Europe. And
my wife's told me stories about that when she was in Germany, how they'd go to places where like she went to the house where Martin Luther transcribed the Bible when the Roman Empire was like hunting down Christians.
What?
Yeah. The place where he like hid in the basement of and like wrote the Bible for like into different languages so that it could always be continuous. Yeah, because they tried for a long time to kill that book, right?
Right.
Christianity was a threat to the empire or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like it. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, the fact that there was that kind of a person, like that is a substantial individual.
No kidding.
Right? When you consider how many people still do read and follow the ways described in the Bible.
Yeah.
Martin Luther was sitting in this chair in front of you. It's like, what
right
the fuck?
there.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and like the Romans, they somehow built roads that still outlast the quality of our road work today.
Right? What does that say?
Right? I know. Yeah. It's nuts. Like, yeah, it is kind of, I feel like in North America, if we all had more exposure to physical history, I think that the culture over here might be a little different.
Oh, I agree.
Because when you go around stuff like that, like the Colosseum, for example, or like the Arc de Triomphe, things like that, they're all linked to certain things, right?
Right.
And you think of a certain era of time when you stare at them, and you realize that like there was conflict or something at this point. And we learned a lesson after the fall of this civilization. We don't have a physical thing to look at to be like, like you look at the size and like just the sheer weight of like the Great Pyramids or something, and you realize some people who built something that huge and vast and like still to this day is standing, still managed to become almost a non-existent. Like they were an empire at one point, and now they're gone. We don't have anything like that here for us to look at and be like, well, I guess we better not make the same mistakes as the last guys, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But we don't have it here. And I feel like that would be helpful in a sense.
Well, and I don't know if it's me being naive, but, a lot of the history that I've heard about growing up has to do with the States, not even Canada.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, what? I want to know a little bit more about Canada, but comparatively speaking, there's not a lot.
No, because, for a long time, Canada, and even now, Canada just like, whoever has been in charge of whatever moves have been made, we've slowly started to become America Light.
Yep. America Light.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah.
And, I get the wonderful story of independence that comes from the States and stuff, and like how they fought off the British Empire and blah, blah, blah. Sure, cool, great. Yeah. But there's like a few 1,000 years before you guys that I'd like to know about that matter, that actually fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like we're just finding like, I don't know if it's in the last 10 years or 20 years, but we've started to find like examples of trading that's gone on from our indigenous peoples and Polynesians and like things like that. And like entire trade routes that the Western world had before anyone from Europe came over. Right. There were like, indigenous peoples all through North and South America that traded in between each other. Yeah. And there were people from like the Pacific Ocean who would make these journeys over and bring goods and stuff and trade that sort of stuff over. And like the fact that I don't know if they're teaching this in our schools now because I've been out of those for a while.
You and me both.
Like, I feel like that's something that should be more emphasized in our day-to-day cultures. Like the understanding that like even though indigenous peoples up here may not have had structures that lasted forever, right? Yeah. Like things that broke down with nature because that's frankly a better way to have lived your life anyhow, right? Yeah. But to say that they weren't isolated and it wasn't just like this one like area of like, isolated peoples who just like kept to themselves. There actually was this giant trading network happening all through the continent. Totally. Through people trading goods through hand to hand. But we don't fucking look at that as important for some reason because they didn't leave these big structures behind. It's wild to me.
Yeah. I didn't know that until now.
Yeah, no, that's like, the thing, man. They used to like, it was a lot more than people used to say there were here when Columbus came over.
I knew there was a lot going on.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's like, still so much that
they're finding they're finding some things like, I don't know if this is necessarily in Canadian Indigenous communities, like where they like dig sites, but in like some of the ones in America and stuff, they're finding like artifacts that track back to like the Mayans and stuff that have somehow managed to trade hands over
interesting
X amount of years and people to make it all the way up over here. It shows that they did have like a international in a sense trading routes and stuff, right?
Totally.
But we just think they had canoes and kept to themselves. It's like just wild.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if the other half of the world is building concrete structures and like these huge things, how can you seriously think that people on the other side here are like stuck in a stone age?
Yeah, totally.
They just chose to live a different type of lifestyle.
Yeah,
exactly. I never heard of the like. Oh, no. I guess. Sorry, I'm just getting lost in my own head here. My bad. Getting sidetracked.
I get it. I do that. I do that.
We're getting a little too historic here. Actually, speaking of indigenous cultures and stuff, what did you think of Killers of the Flower Moon? I heard that there were some inaccuracies as far as like what they portrayed the. What was the indigenous peoples they were?
The Oz. Oh shoot, Oz.
Oh, shit. I think it was something.
Shoot.
I know. Yeah.
But no, I think in terms of the film and the indigenous portion of it, maybe in terms of the history and what it was on, there were some things that they kind of missed the mark on. But as an indigenous focused film, it was extremely well done.
Yeah, because I heard that they had like advisors, like elders from that actual tribe there that were like fucking right there, and they gave it the stamp of approval.
Yeah,
so it was good.
Yeah, and there's been other films that have been done about indigenous peoples and whatnot. I don't know, for example, like a good one about the residential schools is Bones of Crows.
Bones of Crows, okay.
Bones of Crows, that's a great one. But I find there's too much going on in that one.
Oh.
Yeah, there's too much, and you're not really like, it's a little hard to follow.
The Osage people. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
thank you, Ricardo, for that save. Or maybe it was Ryan, one of the guys out there in the booth.
Yes, the Osage people.
Yeah.
But there were some moments throughout Bones of Crows it was hard to follow. It was jumping around too much in timeline. With Killers of the Flower Moon, it was very much so linear.
I still haven't seen Bones of Crows yet.
I would recommend it.
Yeah.
It's you helped work on that, yeah?
No, I didn't. I knew lots of people who did. I didn't. Yeah. I was working on Motherland when they were doing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, no, when we worked on it, we were like excited about what we were shooting. We're like, okay, this is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And then, we went to the premiere and saw it and whatnot. And I remember my brother Steven and I, we left and we were like, what the hell was that?
Really, eh?
Just it was just not at all what we expected. And it was just, and we both kind of came to the conclusion it was just really hard to follow. Like there were moments that just you didn't have time to soak in what just happened. It just moved too quick, and it wasn't.
The pacing was off, eh?
The pacing was off, and the focus on Indigenous culture was there, but it wasn't on that specifically. It was the effects of the residential schools and how it can affect the generations after.
Yeah, generational trauma.
Exactly,
yeah.
And which, if that was most likely their main intention, but with Killers of the Flower Moon, it made sure to point out the beauty in their culture. It gave, because of Scorsese's long takes, and his films are so freakishly long.
Yeah, he does do those long shots.
It gave time for the scene to breathe and for the viewer to really soak in what was said, what's happening, what will happen.
Cool.
And it just showed off the colors and the community aspect of it so much more.
He does have a habit of almost like letting you sit in it for a while.
Yeah.
Right? Like you get to kind of soak in what's really going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also taught or told me about how the Osage people at one point were the most wealthy on, I don't remember if it was on the planet, but one of the most wealthy colonies.
Wow.
And for a chunk of time, because it was this group of people that owned this chunk of land. Initially, they were like, this is our land. This is what we own. They had no idea they were sitting on top of a completely untouched oil, like,
field
treasure chest.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's like, and black gold.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it showed itself one day. And yeah, the Osage people ended up, at one point having white people as their butlers and assistants.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was
flipping the script.
Honestly,
that's great.
I didn't know that was a thing until I saw this movie, and that's what I kind of had in mind I would learn. Not obviously that same topic, but I thought I would come away from the other movies about Indigenous with some sort of knowledge like that.
Yeah.
With this one in particular, it taught me something. I left that movie thinking, okay, yeah, sure, I spent 3.5 hours of my life watching this and held in, my pee for, 2 hours of that. But,
okay.
It was fantastic because not only was it a good movie, but I left with some more knowledge that I went in with.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
That's important too. Like I find we really don't do it. Like as much as Disney has taken this and like thrown it way over the top, like we really don't do enough to like kind of portray stories of like our Indigenous peoples and like marginalized communities that way.
Yeah.
I guess, when I first heard Scorsese was doing it,
mm-hmm.
I did have that knee-jerk reaction of, a white man telling an Indigenous story, like of course, right?
Yeah.
But if there's any filmmakers who are responsible and pay attention enough to like the source details, like and the source material, he's the guy.
Oh, for sure.
Like he's the dude who's gonna do that, you know.
Yeah. He took his time getting ready for that.
You managed to watch Reservation Dogs at all?
Reservoir Dogs.
No, so there's
Reservation Dogs.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Taika Waititi, right?
Yes.
He's got this whole. He wrote this series on 4 kids living in modern day reservation in Ohio, I think it is, or Idaho or something like that. And it's really, really well taught. Like, you know, growing up in Kamloops, we knew lots of Indigenous people, and we spent some time on the reserves, obviously, right?
Yeah, I grew up on the res.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
I
nice.
did.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I was good friends with the Labordier family, and like they got their own res out in the Whispering Pines there, right? Mm-hmm. Go out there for the motorcycles and shit and all that stuff. But yeah, he does a really good job. It's I think it's an 8-episode series. New seasons coming out and stuff like that. But man, it's funny. Yeah. It's accurately casted. It's really well written.
That's cool.
They've got like it's got that sort of that thing that Taika does where like he will take something, one of the most dark and like just terrible moments of our history or our time. Yeah. And like you won't know you almost don't know it's about that thing until he hits you with some serious with
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it's all like funny, and then he turns around in the square and there's his mom's shoes hanging by his face.
One of the most iconic shots of that film.
It's like it's like this kid's sense of whimsy until it kind of pans away, and then you're like, wait a minute, this is like World War II Nazi Germany right now. Like you almost forget that it's happening until he just decides to slap you in the face with some
very true
fucking real stuff, you know?
Very true.
You know, like and like how much did you hate loving Hitler as an imaginary friend? I hated the fact that I liked it so much. But it was great. And like he said he couldn't find anyone who wanted to play the part, so that's why he played it himself.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, fair enough, right? But like, man, that was just it really I love that type of filmmaking. Like I find some people they like if they make drama, they don't want to do comedy. If they make comedy, they don't want to do drama. Yeah. Or like anything in between.
For sure.
But Taika manages to like pull it all together. Yeah. Especially when he really wants to.
Oh, for sure. Know? Totally. Yeah. Totally understandable how it won Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so speaking of like films with like a story to tell and messages like that and stuff, and well, comedies and dramas. Yeah. You're obviously much more into like the serious side of things right now. Do you have anything in the works as far as a comedy or something like that goes?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm I as I said, I like the documentary style, you know, Office, Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
I love that kind.
The Gonzo approach.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
And after working construction, and as you may know, there's a lot of different personalities that can be on a work site.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
And when I was working construction for a little bit, I thought, how funny would it be if somebody was to document this and have that confession room and all this stuff, and just to have these different personalities all working on one job site. And it's called Site 122. Don't ask me why I called it that, but it's just like these kids that needed a job, so they went out and applied to be a laborer on a site, and you know their priority is completely different. They're just there because they need money to pay their rent. Yeah. And then the one person that should care but doesn't is the foreman. He's about to retire. He's got like 2 years left.
There's no fucks given.
He's like, like we got to get it done because I know what happens if we build this wrong. So let's make sure we do it. But after it's done, you do your own thing. It's that kind of environment where the workers are there because their motives are way different, and then the person in charge doesn't care. Yeah. He's like, I'm almost retired. I just want out of here. Yeah. And I'm taking that and kind of film with the idea of filming it like a Parks and Rec or like an Office, where it's just like these ridiculous personalities.
I've had a similar idea for something like that.
Yeah, it would just be hilarious, I think.
It really is like a smart way to do series too. Like I find there's so much emphasis these days on things that like aren't believable. But like The Office, for example, like it's like there's some people working in a fucking office, and somehow it ends up being a multi-Emmy award-winning like legacy of a show, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like, holy shit.
The most simple thing turned into something so good.
Yeah, man. Like sometimes that's what you need, because people can relate to those characters, even though each character is kind of like an exaggerated version of the character they're playing, right? There is that person in every office, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And that's how I had in my mind with that project. But I've heard a couple times that I'm more on the topic or in the genre of drama for the most part. And it's like, okay, I want to kind of go away from that to a point. I want to try writing other things and being a part of comedies. I was part of a couple comedy projects in the past, and they were a blast. Like, working on comedies is just fun.
Yeah. That's really cool.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
I bet it would be actually, you know what? I've worked on one comedy, and it was honestly probably the worst job I've worked.
Seriously.
Next to that, well, it's been out for long enough now. Next to Jurassic World 3, there's this comedy that I worked on, and what I didn't realize is, like, maybe it's fun to write and direct and stuff and act in, sure. Yeah. But when the crew has to stay quiet for an additional fucking, 10 to 15 minutes just to let them ad-lib at a table to find the line or whatever they want to say, it is painful.
Yeah.
Because, they're all having a great time at this table, trying to find funny words and jokes and make it work.
Yeah.
But I'm, as a PA or as a training assistant director or like fucking anyone else that's not camera, director, or cast, they have to stay quiet and sit on their hands for that entire period of time.
Brutal.
Yeah. It was not what I thought it was going to be. Like, there are definitely points where I thought it was funny, and the people I worked with were great.
Right.
But like, when it came down to we're rolling, I've never experienced longer rolls than I have on a comedy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. I actually had this idea a while ago of like one of my favorite shows was Shameless.
Yeah, fantastic show.
It was kind of like what I was saying with Taika, how it's like there's a comedy element, but then there's like these moments where the struggle is really emphasized, right? Like fucking welfare class white family living in the south side of Chicago, right? Mm-hmm. Not a safe place to be. And they somehow managed to make life enjoyable still and like, emphasize family, even with all of their faults.
Totally.
And they all are just flawed characters to their core. But they all have like good intention, right?
Entirely, yeah.
It's like that whole thing. I thought that like a construction company is going, but I thought one like that on a moving company would be
a moving company.
Yeah, as a guy who worked in a moving company for 5 years, the people who go into moving are guys who have no other choice, and they probably can't get a job anywhere else. Like, there are ex-cons, there are guys who are like recovering addicts, there were like all sorts of like. If you want to see what the absolute like struggle mindset is and like the people, go work for a moving company for a while.
Seriously, huh?
You will meet people who are just loyal as hell, flawed as fuck, and will just work themselves to the bone because they have certain things. There's a lot of, from my personal experience, I know of a few different people that I worked with who I saw make the most incredible changes.
Right.
From being fresh out of jail to being a stand-up father figure and like a community beacon. And like a guy who even the guy who owned our company was like at one point like disowned from his family. And they were a pretty well-off family, right? And like because of certain life choices that he made, his family just absolutely cut him off, and he just did it on his own. And like, I was there when he got the first truck in the first 2 weeks of starting the company, and now he's got 5 and 4 different companies along with it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, the guys who stuck with him through that whole thing have also become like, they don't just work as movers now. They work in like these other 4 companies too. And like they help out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting close though. We're about 7 minutes out here. So I figure I wanted to get on to what messages you want to send to the world with your work.
The biggest one right now is not to rely so much on technology. We're wrapping back around to that. That's just a point that I'm trying to make with the stuff that I'm making these days.
Go hug a tree, people.
Well, all right.
Yeah,
But no, like just educate
yeah,
ourselves a little bit with how to do things manually, and it's not just to friggin' it. I'm not saying don't go and get a Tesla or go, get a smart thing for your house. I don't know. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, like, let's not forget about the things that we used to do and what created all this stuff, where it started. And it's just a fail safe almost. It's always good to have the knowledge of how to do this stuff and how convenient we have life right now, how easy it is to do things. Like, frick, you want to order food. I remember I went for a walk in Stanley Park forever ago, and I was hungry. I pulled up Uber Eats on my phone and ordered a sandwich right to a park bench in the middle of Stanley Park.
Oh, fuck.
Like, damn, that was easy. I love that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I do love it. It's just like, holy crap.
Humans are creatures of convenience, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how we've grown. I mean, I think it is important to keep a balance, though, right? Like,
for sure.
You can keep going with your technology, use whatever you want, but just don't forget how to cook,
Totally.
Or like don't forget how to do these basic human things.
Exactly.
We spent like millions of years evolving to be able to do these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to keep that knowledge alive.
Yeah.
Having your grandma's home cooked, friggin' Thanksgiving meal. I don't know. It's just, you can't beat that.
Yeah. Food is one of those things.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I just, that's something that I'm trying to make a point of with whatever I make, is just, even if the story isn't about that, I'm trying to make it kind of a sub thought of like, you should try to keep the knowledge of how to do these things in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Don't completely rely on technology. It's convenient and nice, and I don't diss it. I love technology. I can be a technical nerd sometimes, but I do think it's important not to completely rely on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good message to be putting out there, because right now it's like, back to the, I guess, full circle here that we've come, actually. Yeah. We kind of started on this topic. Pardon me. Started on this topic before. Yeah. Sorry, I get a bit of phlegm in there, and suddenly my voice jumps an octave. It's like, but yeah, I mean, like, it's important. Yeah. I think you're trying to get a really good message across. I think that people should be watching your films. I really do. And I think that, like, if you move forward with this, like, and I'm sure you will if you just keep putting stuff out.
Yeah, I got a big project, my dream project I want to work on at some point in my life. And it basically is pointing out there's 3 stages to it. The stage 1 is establishing what we all have and what we do on a day-to-day basis and what we take for granted and whatnot technologically, Second one is the breakdown. What happens to our world when we have no access suddenly to it? Yeah. Like, it's just gone. And the third is, if we were to rebuild, what would we bring with us and what would we not, How would life be different if we all had a taste of what it was again to have no technology? So that's just kind of what I'm trying to get out there, I think, is just to keep in our heads that we shouldn't rely on it as much as we are, I think.
Sounds like you should have a good chat with Les Stroud, the Survivor Man. See if he could be an advisor on your script or something.
That'd be funny. That'd be great.
Yeah. Fuck, we should try and get him on the show. I would love to have that guy. Dude, he's like, oh man.
Yeah. It's like, it's just me and the camera.
I guess, I always used to say, like, I've been talking a bunch about Anthony Bourdain and Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs lately. It's like
Mike Rowe would be hilarious.
I kind of want to do a project like that. I want to start doing some gonzo approaches.
Totally.
But Les Stroud, didn't even think of him. But now that we've mentioned him, holy shit, that guy. He used to set, it was just him, eh? So those camera shots where he's walking away from the camera.
Yeah.
He walks like 300 yards down a hill, comes back up to get the camera. Yeah.
That's brutal.
Just for the shots.
Man.
What a man.
Yeah.
What an absolute man. Like, Jesus. All right. Well, I think we're about to wrap up here. So if you have,
wonderful.
Is there anything you'd like to say to anybody out here? Anybody that might watch this?
Well, keep pushing, keep striving.
Nice.
And see it work.
Cool. Now, if you got any handles, toss out, give yourself a shout out. Company, Instagram.
Michaelangelo Productions is my production company, and YouTube channel, Michaelangelo Productions. And go there if you want to see any of my projects that came out, coming out.
Yep.
Anything like that.
What do you have in the works right now for them to look forward to?
Alone in the Dark Part 3.
Cool.
The Murder of Stacy Lehman.
Nice.
That's a big one that I've been working on now for a year.
Did I do the drone shot on that one? Is that the one that I did the drone
work
with?
Cool. Yeah.
Can't wait to see that.
That'll be cool. That's pretty much it at this point. I'm just trying to get these ones honed in and going.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Brad. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's the end for us, guys. Catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. And the Deficit will see you again soon. Peace.
Talk in the future, it's funny how the silence is talking. You told me I was the only one who recognized your insecurity.